Chapter 835. Evacuate the people in the Xiantian realm. There's no need to say anything. Just take away all their magic power. In the void, Xiaoyan, Zen Master Dade, and the others talked as they flew. Send them to Cloud Mirror City first, and then hide in the Ying Sea through the void matrix there. Cloud Mirror City can already take refuge first. The enemies have been testing us one after another. Obviously, they're already interested in Xianmen Tianzong. Now that the news from Golden Cicada has spread, those who want to attack will no longer have any scruples and will attack immediately. Xiaoyan said in a low voice, "We brothers will defend Yujing Mountain to the death. We will not retreat unless we have no other choice. A war is inevitable, and Cloud Mirror City will inevitably be affected. Before the dust settles on Yujing Mountain, no one will have any thoughts about the Xiantian realm. After all, the resource development in the Xiantian realm is a long-term matter, but we need to be careful of deliberate sabotage. The things don't matter, but the people. The people in the Xiantian realm are loyal to our sect, and many of them have families. If they are slaughtered by the enemy, even if they take revenge in the future, they won't be able to come back to life. Perhaps they will be destroyed by the angry enemy, but in the current situation, we can only prepare for the worst. We can only try to concentrate our strength and protect Yujing Mountain first." Zen Master Dade nodded. "Ba, Elder Xiao is right. I will contact Mr. Liangji now. I will leave the contact with Elder Zhu of Yujing Mountain to you." Xiaoyan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Third junior brother, and the others are already on their way back. I hope they can be faster than the enemy, or I'm afraid second junior brother will have to break out of seclusion in advance. But if that happens, if the enemy has a magic treasure of creation or an expert in the Dharma-ending realm, the situation will be very dangerous." He looked in the direction of Yujing Mountain in the distance. "The enemy's situation is unknown. I don't know how many enemies there are, and what level they are at. I sincerely hope that my decision this time is not making a fuss and being overly cautious. In that case, even if the disciples and people laugh at me behind my back, it's better than making unnecessary sacrifices when the enemy is really pressing down on the city." Zen Master Dade glanced at Xiaoyan. This valiant youth was as brave as ever, but Lin Feng's many years of experience had taught him the importance of responsibility. He was not impulsive and reckless. His blood was still burning hot, but his mind could remain calm. Slowly he said, "At the very least, the Shushan sword sect will definitely make a move this time. It's just that I don't know how many experts will come." Just now, the Grand Yin swordsman had the intention of defending and waiting for reinforcements. Presumably, the experts of Shu Mountain had already left the mountain and rushed over. Now that they have received the news, I'm afraid that they will directly chase after us and harm us. Fortunately, the mystic heaven realm is right in front of us. We'll be able to save some time with the void teleportation formation." Xiaoyan nodded. Just as he was about to speak, his expression suddenly changed. At the same time, Zen Master Dade's expression also changed. He hurriedly dodged to the side. Xiaoyan also quickly dodged. In the void behind them, an incomparably domineering and vigorous sword light directly obliterated the infinite space, attacking the back of Xiaoyan and Zen Master Dade. Xiaoyan and Monk Dade dodged this powerful sword aura left and right, but this sword aura instantly changed from extreme hardness to extreme softness. The sharp and condensed cold sword aura that seemed to be a substance suddenly turned into clouds and mist, attacking the two of them from the left and right. Gloomy black demonic fire appeared. Xiaoyan grunted and used the Tribulation Flame Green Dragon Mystique, using the Mystic Heaven Tribulation Flame to devour the other's soft sword chi. Zen Master Dade also used the Buddhist Infinite Light Buddha Sutra's immortality, manifesting boundless light to block the enemy's attack. Xiaoyan's Heaven and Earth Dharma Idol and Zen Master Dade's Infinite Light Buddha Dharma Body both manifested at the first instant. Even so, the two felt immense pressure. The incoming Grand Yin sword was on a completely different level from the previous Grand Yin swordsman. The dense and soft sword energy penetrated the Tribulation Flame Azure Dragon one by one, and it quickly bound it. Although the Mystic Heaven Tribulation Flame was still devouring the other sword chi, it was extremely tough. The Mystic Heaven Tribulation Flame had to spend a lot of effort to make it its own. But there was just too much sword chi. Even though the mystic heaven tribulation flame was rapidly growing as it devoured the sword chi, it was still like trying to put out a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Xiaoyan grunted. He could increase the power of the mystic heaven tribulation flame further, but that would exceed the scope of his ability and cause the mystic heaven tribulation flame to lose control. With a whistling sound, the evil glory overlord sword appeared in Xiaoyan's palm. With a swing of the sword, Xiaoyan used the huge sword, which was as wide as a door, as a shield in front of him to block the torrential sword chi. The evil glory overlord sword shook violently, and small holes appeared on the surface of the sword. It was obviously caused by the dense and terrifying sword rain. With a buzzing sound, a blood-red crack suddenly appeared on the blade of the sword, revealing an incomparably terrifying scene of doomsday. The netherworld evil brilliance, the blood river true water, the 9 underworlds evil wind, and other endless calamities and tribulations rose one after another, setting off a continuous and terrifying storm. "It's really the netherworld, see?" someone in the void exclaimed. The sword chi, which were as soft as thin threads, did not get sucked in by the terrifying suction force of the nether sea. Instead, they made a turn in midair and moved in mysterious arcs, avoiding the suction force. On the other side, Zen Master Dade was in a miserable state. He could only rely on his Buddhist Dharma to resist the opponent's attack. Countless thin sword chi stabbed deeply into Zen Master Dade's infinite light Tathagata Dharma body, causing the dignified Tathagata Dharma body to look like a long-haired monster. A hoarse and old voice came from the void. "If you don't reach the pure land of ultimate bliss and cultivate the Amitabha infinite light, no matter how diligently you cultivate the infinite light Tathagata Sutra, you won't be able to defend against my moon sword." Countless thin thread-like sword chi gathered together and gradually surrounded Zen Master Dade like a cloud, continuously attacking him. Xiaoyan wanted to help Zen Master Dade out, but the opponent's sword chi attacked him again. The soft and misty moon sword suddenly changed, turning into a bright golden sword light that was like a pillar in the sky. It stabilized the sea and held up the sky, righteous and vast. One of the 6 meridian swords of Mount Shu Xiaoyang sword. This sword was the most righteous and peaceful. It wasn't ostentatious or sharp, but it was as heavy as a mountain. It was the most difficult to cultivate, but once cultivated, it would be flawless. When the sword stabbed over, even the terrifying suction of the netherworld sea on the evil glory overlord sword couldn't do anything. At this moment, a towering mountain that was thousands of feet tall suddenly appeared in the void. It was snow-white and looked like ice crystals. Red flames could be vaguely seen jumping fiercely. Hot steam rose from the top of the mountain, thick smoke billowed, and endless flames and magma spurted out. Beside the mouth of the volcano stood a white-robed middle-aged man. He had a head of fiery red hair, and a pair of sword-like eyebrows that were snow-white like frost. He squatted down and lightly patted the top of the mountain with his palm. The huge mountain fell down and dispersed the endless sword chi that surrounded Zen Master Dade. It was the other powerful expert that Xianmin Tianzong had stationed in the Xiantian realm, the double pole sky peak, a Mahayana grade Dharma treasure. The Xiaoyang sword that was originally attacking Xiaoyan suddenly changed direction and flashed in the void, turning into a cold light. Its speed was extremely fast. Not only did it surpass space, but it also seemed like it could not be measured by time. Shushan's 6 meridians sword Xiaoyang sword. With a flash of cold light, it was already in front of the double pole sky peak's Dharma treasure, Prime Spirit Peak. It was actually going to kill the primordial spirit of the double pole sky peak with lightning speed. Fortunately, the double pole sky peak had also expected the other party to be able to switch between the Xiaoyang sword and Xiaoyang sword at will. Before the other party could make a move, he had already made the first move. His whole body merged into the double pole sky peak under his feet, and then he used his Dharma treasure to clash head-on with the other party's Xiaoyang sword. Amidst the loud boom, although the double pole sky peak was not damaged and left with a sword mark, the huge mountain was actually pushed back by the opponent. Xiao Yan and Zen Master Dade, who had just escaped, felt their hearts sink when they saw this. The other party's strength was truly astonishing. He had injured Zen Master Dade almost immediately, and then used the Xiaoyang sword, which was not known for pure offensive power, to push the double pole sky peak back. In the void, a tall and thin old man walked out slowly with his hands behind his back. He stared at the double pole sky peak and said, "Ever since you entered Xianmen Tianzong, you have always been in the Xianmen realm. Only about 20 years have passed in this realm, but you have improved a lot. It seems like the master of the Taoist mystic sect did not mistreat you." His voice was as ear-piercing as metal rubbing against each other. "I thought that my strike just now would leave a mark on your body. I did not expect your improvement to exceed this old man's expectations." The double pole sky peak shook slightly and sent a voice transmission to Xiao Yan and Zen Master Dade. "Leave quickly. This old man is the Grand Elder of the Shushan sword sect, Xia Luosher. He is a great sword cultivator at the 3rd tier of the primordial spirit integration realm. I am not his match. I can only try my best to delay him." As he spoke, a cloud of white icy mist suddenly descended from the double pole sky peak and landed in front of Xiao Yan and Zen Master Dade. "Everyone related to my sect in the Xianmen realm has been swept away by my magic power. They are all here. Hurry to the void teleportation array. If you stay here, when the battle reaches a critical moment, I might not be able to protect them. When the time comes, all of you will die." The void beside Xia Luosher split open. Venerable Swordsman Little Shang and Venerable Swordsman Guanchong also stepped out. Behind them followed Venerable Swordsman Ninglang and Venerable Swordsman Heavy Mist. Venerable Swordsman Little Shang said in a low voice, "Want to run? How can it be that easy?" With a flip of his palm, a huge, broad sword appeared in the void. The sword was bright and resplendent, but also cold and piercingly cold. It was as if it was formed from endless sword light that was constantly condensing and compressing. The length of the sword was a full 5 feet, and the width of the blade was 1.5 feet. An endlessly domineering and fierce aura emanated from it. Shushan's Xiaoyang swordplay lineage's inheritance treasure, one of the 6 meridians immortal swords, the Little Shang sword. On the other side, Venerable Swordsman Guanchong was silent. A slightly smaller immortal sword that was also 7 feet long appeared in his hand. It was jet black from head to toe, and did not have any luster. The sword's edge was not sharp, but it was extremely heavy. It looked like a long, narrow, and thick iron plate. It was simple and unadorned, but it was the inheritance treasure of Shushan's Guanchong lineage's inheritance treasure, the Guanchong sword of the 6 meridians immortal swords. Chapter 836. Seeing the Little Shang sword and the Guanchong sword, the complexion of Buddhist monk Dade grew increasingly grave. These 2 swords were the 6 meridian immortal swords of Mount Shu. After many years of sacrificial refinement by the successors of Mount Shu's Xiaoshang sword and Guanchong sword, they were continuously strengthened. Furthermore, they were worshipped by countless disciples of Mount Shu. Both of them were magic treasures at the pinnacle of the incarnation grade. In the entire divine land, they were also at the peak of the incarnation grade magic treasures. As a sword Dharma treasure, it was even sharper and had the power to slash the heavens and split the earth. Sword Venerable Guanchong's void reversion Dharma body had been shattered by Linfeng during the sword trial on Heaven's Path Peak, causing him to fall to the 1st tier of the Essence Soul realm. Although he was still the leader of Guanchong's sword lineage, he was unable to unleash the full power of the Guanchong sword. But the Little Shang Venerable Swordsman was able to unleash the power of the Little Shang sword to the limit. Becoming one with the sword, he could even break through the limit, producing an effect that was greater than 2. In fact, even Venerable Swordsman Guanchong was not to be underestimated with the Guanchong sword in hand. He rarely met a worthy opponent at the 1st tier of the Essence Soul realm. And on the side of the Little Shang sword Venerable, the Little Shang sword was originally the most ferocious and tyrannical of the 6 meridians of Shushan. It was the most open lineage, and was most proficient in forceful attacks. If Dhyana Master Dade had the Buddha's heart lamp of immeasurable light in his hands, he could just barely put up a fight. But at this moment, he did not have the treasure lamp, and he was already heavily injured by the falling rocks. The current Zen Master Dade, even if he were to face Venerable Swordsman Guanchong who had the Guanchong sword, he would have to be careful. Feng Liangji was too busy dealing with the falling rocks. Now that Sword Master Xiaoshang and Sword Master Guanchong had come up, He was powerless to help Xiao Yan and Dade Chanshi. The little Shang sword saint let out an angry roar. The little Shang sword, in his hand pointed forward, instantly emitting a sword cry that shook the heavens. A vigorous and violent sword light, like a river of stars, cut through the air, heading towards Xiao Yan and Buddhist monk Dade. Xiao Yan pushed the white cloud that carried the lives of thousands of people to Zen Master Dade. Let's go first. Send them back to Cloud Mirror City. In the next instant, the desolate and tyrannical bluish-purple flames that filled the sky filled the originally pitch-black void, transforming into the image of a white tiger, charging toward sword venerable little Shang. The void sky faintly cracked open, and the white tiger's 7 mansions in the sea of stars flickered together. Xiao Yan transformed into the evil radiance white tiger, and there seemed to be 7 spots of starlight lighting up in his body. The evil glorious tyrannical sword howled as it was swung out, becoming one with the image of the white tiger. Xiao Yan pushed the power of the evil glorious white tiger chop of his 4 symbols martial path to the extreme, meeting venerable swordsman Xiaoshang's similarly tyrannical and fierce Xiaoshang sword. Unlike the previous battle with the extreme Yin sword, the 2 ferocious sword daros clashed head-on. The nether evil flame was the first type of true fire that Xiao Yan had mastered. It was one of the assets that he had built his empire on. It was also the true fire that he had cultivated the most and controlled the most. The evil radiance overlord sword contained a huge amount of netherworld evil flame. However, it had always been sealed. Only when Xiao Yan's cultivation became higher and higher would he be able to draw out more netherworld evil flame. It was originally the king of all flames. Its pure destructive power was something that even the other 6 great true fires had to retreat from. In this strike, Xiao Yan completely released his control. He completely released his own true fire, and the nether evil flame within the evil glorious tyrannical sword, not holding anything back. He gave up control, gave up restraint. He only wanted to be more tyrannical, more ferocious, more powerful, more incisively exploding, and exploding again. Other than destructive power, it was still destructive power. Endless netherworld evil flame exploded from Xiao Yan's sword, completely turning half the void into a sea of fire. As the sword fell, it left behind a crack in the void, as if it was a wound of the heavens. The 2 sides collided. The evil glorious white tiger was completely shattered. It was not dismembered into thousands of pieces, but it had directly lost its form. The terrifying Xiaoshang sword had destroyed the foundation of its martial will. Endless blue and purple demonic flames danced in all directions, and the majestic sword light of the Xiaoshang sword, that was like the Milky Way, was also shattered, turning into streams of light that shot in all directions. But even if it was shattered, the terrifying streams of light were still terrifying sword lights that caused the vast majority of cultivators below the primordial spirit realm to tremble in fear. And in this sky full of shattered streams of light, a cold light flashed, becoming more and more dazzling. It was the little Shang sword, that the little Shang sword gripped with both hands, stabbing toward Xiao Yan. Above Xiao Yan's head, the heaven and earth Dharma idol appeared. The netherworld evil flame turned into a blue and purple head, its expression overbearing, roaring towards the sky. The netherworld evil flame that filled the air constantly exploded, continuously bombarding the blade of the little Shang sword. On the evil glorious overlord sword, the crack in the netherworld sea opened once again, the scene of doomsday inside. The blue and purple netherworld evil flame was boundlessly tyrannical, wreaking havoc between the heavens and earth, destroying everything in its path. Xiao Yan seemed to have opened the door to the 9 hells of purgatory, drawing the endless calamities and tribulations into the vast 1,000 worlds. It was not enough to wreak havoc in the netherworld sea. Large amounts of netherworld evil flame began to surge out from the crack in the netherworld sea, descending into the void in front of him. In these past years, Xiao Yan had been cultivating in seclusion. Apart from the explosive growth of his own magic power, his understanding and control of the evil glorious overlord sword had also increased. The violent blue and purple demonic flames were endless, constantly bombarding the little Shang sword and the little Shang sword. In the end, the tyrannical little Shang sword began to tremble. This was the poison and calamity of the netherworld sea. The little Shang sword, expression became a little more serious. With a low shout, his entire body radiated sword light, transforming into a powerful sword-wielding man. He was 10 feet tall, holding a giant sword in his hand. His face was dignified and his eyes were like lightning. This was the Little Shang sword, finally going all out. He manifested his void return Dharma idol and controlled the Little Shang sword, wanting to kill Xiao Yan in one battle. The Little Shang sword, in his hand, also increased in size, becoming more than 20 feet long. It was grasped by the Little Shang sword that had transformed into a giant. With a shake of the blade, the surrounding netherworld evil flame was cut apart. As Xiao Yan faced off against the Little Shang sword, Monk Dade chanted a Buddhist chant, and with a white cloud, he turned and left. Li Yuanfang, Jieyu, and the others were also swept away by Monk Dade's magic power, but they could still see what was happening outside. Jieyu's expression was extremely grave. Although it is not the Little Yang sword, or Little Zhe sword, the Little Shang sword still has the Little Shang sword in his hand, and there are others helping him. Elder Xiao, can he do it? The 6 meridians of Shushan all had their advantages and disadvantages. Xiao Yan's mystiques and battle style matched up, and his favorite opponent was the Great Yin sword, which gave him a considerable advantage. Against the Little Shang sword and the Void Return Realm, Venerable Guanchong, he did not like it, but he was not worried either. It was hard to predict the outcome. If the opponent defended with all his strength, he might not have 100% chance of breaking through. But if Venerable Guanchong defended with all his strength, he would not be able to counterattack Xiao Yan. Against the Little Shang sword and the Fiercely sword, everyone would have to fight head-on, and sparks would fly in all directions. The result was very likely that both sides would be heavily injured. And what Xiao Yan was least adept at dealing with were the Little Yang sword and Little Zhe sword. At this moment, if the Little Zhe sword, Venerable Guanchong, came here with the Little Shang sword, the situation would be even worse. Li Yuanfang's expression was calm, and he said in a low voice, "I believe in eldest senior brother." At this moment, Monk Dade could only choose to believe in Xiao Yan. He was already heavily injured, and even if he wanted to cover the retreat, he did not have the strength to do so. He could only listen to Xiao Yan's arrangements, and immediately leave with the White Cloud, Li Yuanfang, and the others. At this time they could not afford to be sloppy or entangled. Otherwise, it would only cause Xiao Yan and Feng Biangji to face danger for nothing, wasting the time they had bought. On the contrary, if he left quickly, Xiao Yan and Feng Biangji would not have anything to worry about, and they could instead seek an opportunity to escape. However, Monk Dade wanted to leave, but Venerable Guanchong did not allow it. With a shake of the Guanchong sword, he had already rushed forward. A solemn black light appeared on the pitch-black sword, like a black hole, bearing the weight of a world. Then it aged, collapsed, and was destroyed. Dade, who allowed you to leave? Although the sword light was only a dot, it was so heavy that it seemed to condense a world within it. Visually, Venerable Guanchong's sword seemed to be extremely slow. Not to mention great sword cultivators at the primordial divinity stage. Even ordinary people seemed to be faster than him. However, it was this sword that seemed to cause Monk Dade's movements to become even slower than his. He could not dodge, and could only turn around to receive his sword. I let him leave. What are you going to do? Amidst the roar, a vermilion bird that was completely golden in color, like a blazing sun, instantly streaked across the void and landed in front of Venerable Guanchong. It was Xiao Yan, who had used the heavenly radiant vermilion bird body to chase after him. He had actually given up on the evil radiant overlord sword, and used the savage demon fire that constantly surged out from the crevices in the netherworld sea on the evil radiant overlord sword to temporarily hold back Venerable Guanchong. Then, using the advantage of his movement technique's speed, he sprinted over and arrived in front of Venerable Guanchong. Xiao Yan did not stand on ceremony at all. With a flip of his palm, a golden and milky white lotus appeared. The red and blue stamens on the lotus constantly swayed. The domineering 3-fire lotus landed on Venerable Guanchong's head. Venerable Guanchong's wooden eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. With a turn of his sword, he used the Guanchong sword to meet Xiao Yan's celestial fire lotus. He was only at the first tier of the primordial divinity stage. If he allowed the three-fire lotus to explode on his body, he would be lucky not to die. Almost at the same time that Xiaoyan attacked Venerable Guanchong, the void suddenly split open. Venerable Guanchong had already rushed behind him. But the sword Dao that he was using now was not the Shaoshang sword treasure, but the Shaozi sword treasure. Even the Shushan sword cultivator Lu Yang of the Golden Elixir period had cultivated both the Shaoshang and Shaozi swords. The number of 6 pulse sword treasures that Venerable Guanchong cultivated would only be greater. The 6 pulse sword treasures of Shushan were of the same qi and branch, and they came from the same source. Cultivating them simultaneously would allow one to comprehend them by analogy. It was impossible for any great sword cultivator at the primordial divinity stage to only know one type. It was just that the sword Dao that they cultivated simultaneously was not as profound as the Dao validation art. Xiaoyan gave up on the evil radiant overlord sword to temporarily hold back Venerable Guanchong. Then he used the speed advantage of his heavenly radiant vermilion bird body to try and stop Venerable Guanchong. Venerable Guanchong beat him at his own game. In an instant he used the Shaozi sword treasure, shook off the evil radiant overlord sword, and charged at Xiaoyan. Venerable Guanchong's sword stance changed, and the Shaozi sword treasure changed back to the Shaoshang sword treasure that he was most proficient in. Violent sword light rose and fell, cleaving down on Xiaoyan's head. At the same time, Venerable Guanchong, Venerable Swordsman of Broken Mountain Ninglang, and Venerable Swordsman Heavy Mist all continued to chase after Monk Dade. None of you can even think of getting past me. Xiaoyan's voice was like spring thunder. With a loud shout, a tall giant suddenly appeared and pounced at Venerable Swordsman of Broken Mountain Ninglang. This giant emitted a majestic qi and blood that was as hot as the sun. It was the god-slaying puppet that Xiaoyan had seized from Marquis Jinghuan. This puppet had already been completely refined by Xiaoyan. It roared and pounced at Ninglang. Even if it was no match for Ninglang, it could still hold him back and prevent him from chasing after Monk Dade. At the same time, the black light that filled the sky swirled and directly swept Venerable Swordsman Heavy Mist into it. Within the black light, a large flag fluttered in the wind. It was the indestructible imperial flag. Chapter 837. The immortal imperial flag had a high degree of autonomy. At the critical moment when Xiaoyan was fighting Sword Venerable Little Shang, he would not leave his back to Sword Venerable Little Shang. But there was no problem using it to trap Venerable Swordsman Heavy Mist. Although Xiaoyan could not unleash the full power of this magic treasure, Venerable Swordsman Heavy Mist would not be able to escape in a short period of time. In this instant, Sword Venerable Little Shang's violent sword light had already descended. If this sword struck, even if Xiaoyan did not die, he would at least lose half his life. If this sword strike landed on the immortal imperial flag, it might even directly annihilate its primordial spirit. And facing this sword, Xiaoyan's figure abruptly swayed in the air. The next instant, thousands of Xiaoyans appeared in all directions. The Xiaoyan at the bottom of Sword Venerable Little Shang's sword shattered, turning into a shadow. Primordial Dark Emperor's peerless divine ability, solitary shadow body. Sword Venerable Guanchong's vision blurred, and 2 or 3 Xiaoyans appeared in front of him, once again blocking his path. Sword Venerable Guanchong swept out with his sword, destroying the 2 or 3 Xiaoyans, but 4 more Xiaoyans appeared behind him, attacking him together. One of them suddenly raised its palm, and a 3-colored fire lotus silently resided in its palm. The violent flames swayed behind him, and Sword Venerable Guanchong was suddenly alarmed. He did not have time to turn around, and could only use his Guanchong sword to block the 3 fire lotus in time. His Guanchong sword was the strongest in defense among the 6 pulse swords. If he was still at the 2nd tier of the primordial spirit realm, even without the Guanchong sword, he would not fear Xiaoyan's 3 fire lotus. But now that he had hastily dealt with it, his primordial spirit trembled. Solitary shadow body? Venerable Swordsman Little Shang was first taken aback, somewhat out of his expectations. But soon after he gave a cold laugh. The Little Shang sword in his hand flashed, changing from hard to soft. The fiercest of the 6 meridian swords, the Little Shang sword became the softest and softest of swords, the extreme sword. Sword chi in the form of clouds and mist filled the air, slashing at Xiao Yan's 1,000 doppelgangers at the same time. No matter if it was the primordial Emperor of Darkness or the middle-aged Shadow Path, they were both famous figures. The solitary shadow body was a technique that was written in history. How could the revered swordsman of Little Shang not have heard of it? If he wanted to break the solitary shadow body, he would have to rely on his advantage in terms of strength. He would use AoE attacks to forcefully attack, and his true body and doppelganger would sweep out together. First, he used the Great Yin sword to trap Xiao Yan's many doppelgangers. The sword energy of the Little Shang, revered swordsman, immediately changed back from being extremely soft to extremely hard. The Great Yin sword once again became the Little Shang sword that he had used to prove his Dao. Right now you still have the leisure to care about Dada? The violent sword light that was like a river of stars extended out, as if it was an infinitely long sword. The Little Shang, revered swordsman Little Shang, swung his sword, destroying all of the doppelgangers of Xiao Yan. Who would have thought that Xiao Yan was not afraid at all? Thousands of him laughed coldly in the air at the same time. Terrifying three-colored fire lotuses appeared in the air one after another, laying down the yin-yang burning heaven formation, surrounding the Little Shang, revered swordsman Little Shang. The terrifying true fire yin and yang began to revolve, unceasingly pressuring the Little Shang, revered swordsman Little Shang, who was in the center, giving him a strong pressure. In the distance, the god-slaying puppet was already at a disadvantage. When the god-slaying puppet, revered swordsman Ning Lang of Broken Mountain, saw this scene, the sword in his hand instantly trembled. He remembered the scene when Xiao Yan had used this formation to deal with the Great Yin revered swordsman Little Shang. If it were not for the fact that the Great Yin revered swordsman Little Shang had acted to defend, if it were him or the Great Yin revered swordsman Heavy Mist, they would not have been able to bear the consequences. But the Little Shang revered swordsman Little Shang was not ordinary. And he also had the Little Shang sword in his hand. The power of the Little Shang sword was pushed to the limit by him. His Dharma body fused directly with the Little Shang. Revered swordsman primordial spirit was imbued with the Little Shang, revered swordsman Little Shang. He became one with the sword, transforming into an unprecedentedly majestic sword light that slashed towards Xiao Yan's yin-yang burning heaven formation. The power of this sword seemed as if it could truly split the heavens and split the earth. The first sword that Jie Luosher had used when he first appeared was also the Little Shang sword. But as this sword slashed out, the sword energy did not stop. It was a declaration and not an attack. It was to tell Xiao Yan and Buddhist Master Dada that he had arrived. Only the Little Shang sword that had transformed into the Great Yin sword was the true attack. But at this moment, even if Jie Luosher used the Little Shang sword, even if he used his bare hands and did not use the Little Shang sword, it still might not be much stronger than the sword of the Little Shang, revered swordsman Little Shang, had in his primordial spirit. This was the limit that a cultivator at the second tier of the primordial spirit realm could reach when using the Little Shang sword. Space completely distorted. The cold light that resembled a silver river pierced through the heavens and earth, continuing to condense and compress. Finally, it transformed into a beam of cold light that was tens of thousands of feet long, tearing apart Xiao Yan's yin-yang burning heaven formation. Countless blazing flames wildly exploded, continuously bombarding the sword light that sword venerable Little Shang had transformed into. The terrifying might that could burn the heavens and boil the seas constantly weakened sword venerable Little Shang's sword intent. But this sword strike of sword venerable Little Shang cut through all the obstacles, forcefully carving out a path in the sea of flames. The violent sword light tore through the sea of flames, rushing in front of Xiao Yan. A five-colored radiance flashed above Xiao Yan's head. A black token appeared. On the token, 5 characters were engraved according to the positions of the 5 elements: Tai, Shi, Gu, Xia, and Chong. At this moment, the 5 characters ignited with blazing flames. The Tai character was blue and purple. It was the netherworld demonic flame. At this moment, it was located in the west, and was of the metal attribute. The Chong character was leaping with black flames. It was the profound heaven tribulation flame. At this moment, it was located in the east and was of the wood attribute. The Gu character was leaping with golden flames. The flames were like needles. It was the true fire of the sun. At this moment, it was located in the south and was of the fire attribute. The pure gold Nanmingli fire that flickered with red and blue radiance occupied the Xia character. At this moment, it was located in the north and was of the water attribute. The final Shi character was a milky white true fire of the sun. At the center, it was located in the earth attribute. The wills of the 5 emperors had been refined and nourished by Xiaoyan's 5 great true fires. At this moment, they were completely activated. The 5 elements transformed, their strength constantly fusing together. They transformed into balls of 5-colored treasured light that gradually fused together, finally condensing into a scarlet beam of light. This scarlet beam of light drove the 5 divine tokens to descend, blocking in front of Xiaoyan. It helped him withstand the tyrannical sword strike of Sword Venerable Little Shang. The violent sword light roared and howled. The scarlet-red light of the 5 divine tokens flickered incessantly, as if they would shatter at any moment. If it were not for the fact that the Yin-Yang Burning Heaven array had already worn down its strength, this sword strike would have instantly destroyed the 5 divine tokens. But even so, it could only temporarily block Sword Venerable Little Shang. Xiaoyan could clearly feel that he had used up a lot of his magic power. Although he had obtained the upper hand in the battle with Sword Venerable Little Shang, he had already used up a large amount of his magic power. Thanks to the cloud forest tree that Lin Feng had given him, he was able to recover his battle strength in a short period of time. But after so many years of cultivation, the essence energy contained in the cloud forest tree was almost completely used up. At this moment, it was an even more intense battle. He relied on all kinds of powerful abilities and treasures to fight one against many. The price was that there was a possibility that he would run out of energy at any moment. At that time, the situation of the battle would inevitably take a turn for the worse. A cold light flashed in Xiaoyan's eyes. Seeing that Sword Venerable Little Shang was about to break through the barrier of the 5 divine tokens, he suddenly waved his hand. The evil radiant tyrannical sword that he had given up and sent flying by Sword Venerable Little Shang into the void suddenly appeared in front of the 2 of them. Seeing this, Sword Venerable Little Shang frowned in his heart. When he had sent the evil radiant tyrannical sword flying, he was confident that he had already destroyed the magic power, divine sense, and martial intent that Xiaoyan had gathered within it. That huge black sword should be like an ownerless object at this moment. But at this moment, Xiaoyan waved his hand. The evil radiant tyrannical sword was enveloped in a dark evil light, slashing towards the sword light formed by Sword Venerable Little Shang's primordial spirit. But at this time, a black light lit up. The target was Xiaoyan. It was Sword Venerable Guanchong riding the Guanchong sword. Being delayed by Xiaoyan, Zen Master Dade had already escaped. Even if Sword Venerable Guanchong wanted to chase, it was already too late. His originally wooden eyes were now filled with a cold light. Sword Venerable Little Shang snorted in dissatisfaction. Guanchong! Sword Venerable Guanchong did not reply. But the black light on the tip of the Guanchong sword became more and more intense. In the entire Shushan, the person who had the deepest hatred for Xianmen Tianzong was Sword Venerable Guanchong, whose Dharma body had been shattered by Lin Feng years ago. Now that he was being obstructed by Xiaoyan, his killing intent surged. The Guanchong sword, which was as heavy as a mountain, attacked Xiaoyan with an extremely terrifying might. Xiaoyan let out a wild roar, like a mad tiger. "Let's fight! Do you think I'm afraid of you?" He raised his right palm, and a sea of true fire appeared above his head. The azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise floated in the sea of fire. As the light and shadow flickered, Xiaoyan's powerful martial intent almost became real. A virtual and illusory starry sky appeared, and the 28 constellations in the starry sky were dazzling. The distant sky seemed to have opened up, and the real 28 constellations in the sea of stars also seemed to have become dazzling. They stood in 4 directions, and there were 7 constellations in each direction. They shone with the starry sky in the illusory realm created by Xiaoyan's martial intent. For a moment, Xiaoyan vaguely felt that there was a trace of real star power supporting him, and it was not just a simple resonance like before. This caused Xiaoyan's power to continue to rise. The endless true fire and the illusory realm of stars collapsed together with his right palm. It was as if the world was collapsing. For symbols Milky Way palm. With this palm, Xiaoyan did not defend at all. He attacked the head of Sword Venerable Guanchong. Sword Venerable Guanchong's expression suddenly changed. He changed the momentum of his sword, and pointed the tip of his sword at Xiaoyan's palm. Boom! With a loud sound, the Guanchong sword in Sword Venerable Guanchong's hand let out a cry and was sent flying out of his hand. Several cracks even appeared on the sturdy body of the sword, and the sword light instantly dimmed. A treasure at the peak of the Incarnation Realm was almost shattered by Xiaoyan's palm. And Xiaoyan's right palm has been pierced through. There are even countless terrifying bloody scars continuously extending from the hole in his palm to the surrounding areas. However, after the terrifying prowess of the four symbols Milky Way palm sent Sword Venerable Guanchong flying, it did not stop. Raging flames and starlight rained down, causing Sword Venerable Guanchong's primordial spirit to be covered in wounds. The left half of the primordial spirit's human form was completely smashed by Xiaoyan's palm. On the other side, although Sword Venerable Guanchong was displeased that Sword Venerable Guanchong had interfered in his battle, he did not dare to hold back. Otherwise, Sword Venerable Guanchong would die in Xiaoyan's hands. The ferocious and sharp Sword Venerable Guanchong's power once again surged, and the evil radiant overlord sword that was attacking him from the side flew away. The violent and overbearing power also sent the 5 divine badges, which already had cracks on them, flying. Then the sword attacked Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan let out a low roar, and like a clap of thunder, the god-slaying puppet suddenly abandoned Ning Lang. Paying the price of having one of its arms cut off by Ning Lang, it madly rushed to Xiaoyan's side and blocked the sword for him. The indestructible and ferocious Sword Venerable Guanchong directly split the god-slaying puppet in half from head to toe. However, with this slight obstruction, the Pure Yang True Fire, True Sun Fire, Nether Evil Radiant Fire, and Nanmingli Fire, the 4 great true fires simultaneously manifested, gathered, and compressed in front of Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan stared at Sword Venerable Guanchong, and instead revealed a smile on his face. However, no matter how one looked at it, it seemed cruel and violent. Come, let's see who dies first. Chapter 838. This battle with Venerable Swordsman Guanchong and Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang was the most desperate battle Xiaoyan had ever fought since he had formed his nascent soul, but it also allowed him to constantly break through himself, constantly improving himself in battle. His valiant blood qi and battle talent were completely stimulated, making him stronger. The stronger he met, the braver he became. Countless seals and incantations were thrown into the flames by Xiaoyan at an unprecedented speed. Immediately afterwards, the raging flames suddenly calmed down. A 3-layered lotus appeared between Xiaoyan and Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang. The bottom layer was milky white, the middle layer was pure gold, and the top layer was violet blue. The center of the lotus sparkled with golden light, a red and a basket of stamens swaying. The fusion of 4 flames, the celestial flaming lotus. The terrifying 4-colored flaming lotus swayed in the air, like a delicate lotus flower. But a terrifying aura spread out, causing even Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang, who had the little Shang sword in his hand, to feel a chill. He let out a low roar, dispelling all distracting thoughts. The violent little Shang sword continued to be pushed to its limit, slashing toward Xiaoyan, wanting to first kill Xiaoyan on the spot. The 4-colored lotus and the starry river of sword light brushed past each other. They did not come into contact with each other, both rushing towards their respective targets. Xiaoyan's face was completely devoid of blood. He was extremely weak. The sword light had not yet reached his body, but the biting cold light already made his entire body ache, and he felt as if he was about to be split in half like a god-slaying puppet. And the 4-colored flaming lotus had already reached Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang. It had not even exploded, but Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang already felt as if his void-level Dharma body was about to burn and then explode. If he forcefully took this attack, either the little Shang sword's primordial spirit would be destroyed, or he would be directly blown to death. Just at this time, a black light that was like a wall, like a mountain, appeared in front of Venerable Swordsman Xiaoshang. It was like a barrier that separated heaven and earth, blocking Xiaoyan's 4-colored flaming lotus. The Grand Elder of Shu Mountain, Jie Luosher's Guancheng sword. In the distant void, Jie Luosher stretched out his right hand, and an extremely heavy black light circulated on his fingertip. This was Guancheng's sword weapon, which was much more powerful than when sword venerate Guancheng's Dharma body had yet to shatter. And he was at his peak. The four-colored fiery lotus fell on the black light and exploded with a loud bang, annihilating all sound. Only the endless fiery light spread out, illuminating the dark void where everyone was as bright as day. Heaven and earth seemed to be divided into two by the black light. On one side was an endless sea of fire, completely annihilating sound, light and spiritual energy. On the other side was venerable swordsman, Little Shang, who was still in a state of shock. He was shocked to find that even the black light formed by the falling stone pass sword was shaking violently under the bombardment of this terrifying four-colored fire lotus. The sword intent that was as firm as a divine mountain, and as heavy as the ancient earth was also shaking. A hint of surprise also flashed in Jie Luosher's eyes. Behind him was the two extremes heavenly peak, which seemed to be in another independent world. In that world, it was filled with dense clouds that one couldn't even see their own fingers. In the clouds, the two extremes heavenly peak was shaking violently. In an instant, it shook hundreds and thousands of times. Every time it shook, it was an explosion of his power. This was because at this moment, the clouds that enveloped him were launching hundreds and thousands of attacks at him in an instant. The sword intent and dermic power that Jie Luosher's Great Yin sword had activated was different from that of venerable swordsman Great Yin. It was not thousands of strands of qi, but innumerable tiny particles that were like grains of sand in the Ganges River. They were like thousands of dust particles that turned into a haze that enveloped the two extremes heavenly peak. These dust-like sword intent and dermic power seemed to be everywhere, untraceable, endless, and all-pervasive. They looked as tiny as dust particles, seemingly negligible, but in reality, any one of these sword intent and dermic power possessed extremely terrifying offensive power. The highest realm of the Great Yin sword, the Great Yin Four Void Sword realm. This sword was the ultimate offensive power of the Great Yin sword. Throughout the ages, there were very few experts of Shushan who could master this sword at the second tier of the primordial spirit realm. As for Jie Luosher, he was a rare genius of the Great Yin sword lineage. He had already mastered this sword when the second tier of the primordial spirit realm had returned to the void realm. Now that he was using it at the third tier of the primordial spirit realm, its power was even greater. Jie Luosher's Great Yin sword blocked Xiaoyan's four-colored fiery lotus. On the other side, he tapped his finger, and the Xiaoshang sword flashed with a cold light. It entered the Great Yin Four Void Sword realm, and instantly slashed down on the two extremes heavenly peak. As the two sides were about to collide, Jie Luosher's Xiaoshang sword suddenly changed. As the light exploded, a monstrous murderous intent surged. The sword light was incomparably resplendent. Within the sword light, countless sword qi and sword aura surged, and the sword intent took on a physical form. It was incomparably fierce, even more shocking and ferocious than the Xiaoshang sword. Among the 6 meridian swords of Shushan, this was a fierce attack that targeted a single point. It could be said to be the number 1 sword of the 6 meridian swords. An extremely fierce and ferocious force erupted, concentrated on a single point, and directly pierced through the two extremes heavenly peak. The two extremes heavenly peak shook, and endless flames spewed from the top of the mountain. The entire ice crystal-like mountain instantly became almost transparent. The space where the mountain was also transformed into a world, ice and fire intertwining. The flames incinerated the Great Yin sword that was like a cloud, and the ice transformed into layers of barriers, concentrating its power to block the piercing attack of the Li Feng sword. And on the other side, the four-colored fiery lotus was blocked by Jie Luosher's Great Yin sword. Looking at the frightened expression of the Little Shang venerable swordsman on the other side of the black light, looking at the terrifying sword light of the Xiaoshang sword that was already right in front of him, Xiao Yan's pale face was as resolute and stubborn as before. The void suddenly opened, and a tall man stepped out. He was dressed in blue, and a jet-black vine wrapped around his arm. The tall man faced the Xiaoshang sword, his expression also grave. The jet-black vine on his arm rapidly grew, and a white flower suddenly appeared on the vine. The white flower bloomed, and an extremely ancient and desolate aura bloomed, giving birth to a vigorous life force. The Xiaoshang sword landed on the seemingly delicate white flower, but it was not able to completely sever the white flower. Instead, it pressed against the petals of the white flower, slowly cutting the petals apart. The speed was extremely slow. In the distance, Jieluosher's eyebrows rose slightly. The primordial great Tao of longevity flower, endlessly lasting? The ancient sovereign's primordial great Tao of longevity art's true inheritance? Beside Xiaoyan, a beautiful figure in blue appeared. She held the ancient emperor blade in her hand, and the primordial thunder jade above her head. She blocked Sword Saint Ninglang of Broken Mountain, who had lost control of the god-slaying puppet, and was attempting to kill Xiaoyan. Shana. On Xiaoyan's pale face, a brilliant smile bloomed on his lips. He stood back to back with the beautiful young girl. They did not need to say anything, and their minds were already connected. Xiao Zhener stuck to Xiaoyan, an apologetic expression on her face. I'm sorry, big brother Xiaoyan. My family's dimensional realm has also undergone a great change. Father and the others can't leave, and only Uncle Peng can come with me. I don't know how useful he will be in the future. Xiaoyan smiled. My sect should be apologizing for dragging you guys into this. But between you and me, I won't say sorry or thank you. Hearing this, Xiao Zhener also laughed softly. After laughing, Xiaoyan's expression became serious again, because he clearly saw Jieluosher raise his right hand expressionlessly. His index and middle fingers were placed together like a sword, and a white chaotic hole appeared on his fingertip. The white chaotic hole's airflow kept spinning, and an extremely terrifying power was being born from it. From the white chaotic hole, an extremely thin sword chi rushed out. It looked weak like a breeze, but it was extremely terrifying. The sword chi seemed to be born from chaos before the heaven and earth were formed. It wanted to split the chaos with one strike, split the heavens and earth, and build a world. The supreme sword Tao of Shu Mountain, heavenly immortal sword chi. This extremely terrifying sword chi slashed towards the Two Poles Sky Peak. The Two Poles Sky Peak, which was busy dealing with the Moon Sword and Li Sword, was instantly damaged, and a crack appeared on the mountain. Muffled groans came from the Two Poles Sky Peak. On the other side, Sword Venerable Little Shang also rushed forward with his sword. Xiao Zhener's uncle Gu Peng used his incarnation-grade magic treasure longevity ancient vine to stop him, while Xiao Zhen faced Sword Venerable Broken Mountain Ninglang. Swordsman Heavy Mist, who was wrapped up in the Immortal Emperor flag, was also struggling incessantly. Although the Immortal Emperor flag had been refined by Xiaoyan, it still retained a considerable amount of autonomy. It was impossible for him to risk his life for Xiaoyan's sake. At this moment, the Immortal Emperor flag's origin spirit's heart sank even further when it saw the incomparably terrifying heavenly immortal sword chi unleashed from the falling rocks. Xiaoyan watched as the Twin Poles Sky Peak was pushed back repeatedly. Taking a deep breath, he patted his storage pouch and a cloud forest tree trunk appeared. Compared to the towering tree from before, there was not much left of it. The tree trunk had completely turned into essence chi, nourishing Xiaoyan's almost depleted magic power. Feeling his magic power rapidly recovering, Xiaoyan closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged. A strange pill appeared in his palm and he swallowed it. 33 Heavens Fortune Immortal Pill. Lin Feng and Xiaoyan had painstakingly worked for many years, and now they had finally refined it. After swallowing the immortal pill, a light shadow flashed above Xiaoyan's head, and a huge heaven and earth avatar appeared. But this was not the end. A 15 or 16-year-old light shadow also appeared above Xiaoyan's head. His facial features were impressively his own appearance when he was young. Yuanying out of the body. Generally speaking, a nascent soul at its peak would have the appearance of a cultivator at the age of 16. After returning from Yingxi, in the past 2 years in the vast thousand world, other than occasionally leaving the mountain to train and refine pills, Xiaoyan spent the rest of his time in closed-door cultivation. In closed-door cultivation at Burning Heaven Cliff, in closed-door cultivation at Mysterious Heaven's Time Light Grotto Heaven, he figured out Tao techniques and nurtured his nascent soul. The current him had long reached the peak of late nascent soul. After the extremely tragic battle that had allowed him to unleash all his potential, Xiao Yan felt that the originally indistinct door above his head was now unprecedentedly clear. Everyone present was slightly shocked when they saw this. Could it be that he's going to? Xiao Yan's heaven and earth avatar was currently full of wounds, showing the ferocity of the battle just now. His physical body was in an even worse state, and his right palm was badly mutilated. But at this moment, Xiao Yan's essence, qi, and spirit were unprecedentedly vigorous. He only felt that he had never been so close to the Tao of heaven and earth. Xiao Zhen'er's gaze looked over. Xiao Yan slightly smiled. I am Master's eldest disciple, the rest of the sect's eldest Shixiang, eldest uncle, head elder. Since Master is not here, I have to stand up. As long as my body is not destroyed, I will protect the sect for eternity. I will not regret it even if I die 10,000 times. Xiao Zhen'er looked at him and did not try to persuade him. A faint smile appeared on her face, and she turned around and attacked even more fiercely, not letting him take a step forward. Xiao Yan let out a long roar. Third junior brother, fourth junior sister, fifth junior brother, it's a pity that I can't wait for your Xidigarba true brilliance. Second junior brother, little junior brother, forgive me for taking this step first. Chapter 839. He became famous at a young age, but then suddenly wasted his life. There was the humiliation of someone breaking off the engagement. And then there was the pride of settling old matters at the Cloud Travel Peak. Then, because he blindly cultivated the Nanmingli fire, he fell into trouble again. Then he shone again and became famous. He had climbed a high mountain and fallen into a valley. His life was full of ups and downs. Now looking back, there was only peace in his heart. Unexpectedly, deep in his memory, the scene of meeting his master for the first time flashed in his mind, and his words were still ringing in his ears. I told you to take care of your junior brother, and it was not just for show. Ordinary people know that an elder brother has to protect his younger brother and sister. In the future, when your junior brother and sister are in trouble, you, as the eldest senior brother, have to stand up for them. If you were beaten by someone's junior, then beat them back yourself. Don't be like a child who hasn't grown up and come crying to your master. I don't have such a useless disciple. If you beat up the young, if you provoke the old, don't be afraid. At that time, your master will stand up for you. Don't worry, master. Even if you provoke the old, you don't have to do anything. I will concentrate on cultivating and then go back to find him. At that time, we will fight the old and the young together. The conversation between master and disciple gradually faded away. Xiao Yan's long roar shook the void in all directions. All his willpower finally merged into one, eliminating other distracting thoughts, and there was only one voice in his heart. Primordial spirit. Primordial spirit. Primordial spirit. At this moment he felt that the door in his sea of consciousness suddenly opened. A large amount of laws of heaven and earth fell, like a heavenly path, leading Xiao Yan straight to the 9 heavens. His yuanying turned into a stream of light, and rushed into the Dharma of heaven and earth. As if the human soul had a body, yuanying and the Dharma of heaven and earth became one, rushing into the open door together. After this pass, the world would never be the same again. The sea and the sky were vast, and the ruler was free to roam. Heaven and earth were one, and the same age as the heavens. Without a mortal body, he could go anywhere in the world. After passing through the door in the void, Xiao Yan's Dharma of heaven and earth suddenly collapsed and became one with the world. Under the baptism of countless laws of heaven and earth, it turned into dazzling talisman seeds. All of a sudden, these talisman seeds separated into 5 different directions and transformed into millions of little flames. They were milky white, pure gold, dark black, blue-purple, and gold with red and blue radiance. Every little flame was constantly absorbing the great Tao laws of creation of the world. Under the nourishment of these laws, they grew rapidly, turning into balls of raging flames that covered the entire void. In the next moment, all the flames fused together, turning into a huge taiji diagram in the void that was half black and half white. It covered the sky and filled the world. Suddenly, a loud and heroic song came from the taiji diagram. The brilliant art is like practice, the burning heavens and boiling sea's palm. The mysterious fiery lotus proves my true self, and my life will be that of an immortal in the flames of the myriad realms. After the song, the Taiji diagram spun and turned into a sea of fire. Under everyone's watchful eyes and heavy pressure, Xiaoyan successfully broke through the final barrier and became an essence soul cultivator. His original body, the evil radiant overlord sword, and the 5 divine badges fell into the boundless sea of fire. A faint golden figure appeared on the immortal imperial flag. It was completely formed from light and shadow dermic powers. It was dressed in a coiled dragon golden armor and a golden helmet. Its face was filled with the majesty of an emperor, as if it was an emperor personally leading the army. It was the immortal imperial flag's Dharma treasure origin spirit. He looked at Xiaoyan and sighed. He took off the golden helmet on his head and bowed slightly to Xiaoyan. Immediately after, the faint golden figure disappeared. As the immortal imperial flag fluttered, it threw venerable swordsman heavy mist out. Then, it turned into a black light and followed the evil radiant overlord sword and the 5 divine badges into the sea of fire. The next moment, the sea of fire gradually condensed, turning into a flaming human figure. The fire light dispersed, once again revealing a purple-clothed, black-robed Xiaoyan. On his forehead, the Tai Chi pattern flashed and disappeared. His original physical injuries were rather serious. If his essence soul and physical body were to fuse and prove his Tao through martial arts, his power would not be complete after he had just formed his essence soul. He needed time to recover. The current situation was urgent, and he did not have that much time. Hence Xiaoyan simply refined his original physical body shell into his primordial spirit as well. In this way, he could ensure that his essence soul was formed, and his combat power would not be affected in any way. He would be at his peak. Although the power of martial arts such as the 4 symbols Milky Way Palm, the Calamity Flame Green Dragon Claw, and the Evil Radiant White Tiger Slash would be weaker than when the essence soul was fused with the physical body, the power of the Celestial Flaming Lotus, the Yin-Yang Burning Sky Array, the Dark Evil Radiant, and the mysterious Heavenly Tribulation Flame could be unleashed to the extreme. Xiaoyan let out a long roar and stretched out his right hand. Majestic purple-blue demonic flames gathered in his palm and turned into an extremely huge black sword. Clang! Xiaoyan stood with his sword in front of him and flicked his left hand on the black sword. Suddenly, an extremely violent will appeared. It was as if a peerless demon lord had awakened and wanted to destroy the world. Xiaoyan laughed. Today you are the real evil radiant overlord sword. The wide and edgeless black sword in his hand let out a long hum that resounded through the 9 heavens. The endless destructive will of calamity filled the void. On the surface of the blade, the dark red crack of the netherworld sea appeared again. The violent power of the netherworld sea seemed to pour into the evil radiant overlord sword, making its evil aura even more intense and mournful. The Little Shang sword in venerable swordsman Little Shang's hand shook violently, and a majestic voice came from it. What an evil and tyrannical sword! It is only at the spirit conception level and has just been successfully refined, but it is already so savage. After being nourished, even if it does not transform, it will still be a sharp sword. Guanchong's sword had just manifested a human body, but it was already extremely weak. It was almost unable to maintain its essence soul incarnation. It was only thanks to venerable swordsman Heavy Mist's lunar sword that he was able to protect himself. Guanchong's sword returned to his side, but the sword light was already extremely dim. There were several terrifying cracks on the sword's body, making it look extremely miserable. At this moment, facing the evil radiant overlord sword that had become a magic treasure along with Xiaoyan, the heavily injured Guanchong's sword let out a low grunt. The sword light actually became even dimmer. Is he really a cultivator at the essence soul incarnation realm like me? Venerable swordsman Ning Lang of Broken Mountains looked at Xiaoyan. For a moment, he was stunned on the spot. He only felt that his heart of the sword, which had long been covered in dust, seemed to be shattering. For a moment, even Gu Peng, the direct descendant of the ancient emperor who had come with Xiao Zhen, to help, felt the terrifying aura that seemed to burn the heavens and boil the seas from Xiaoyan's body. His heart trembled. Everyone looked at Xiaoyan. Disregarding guest protectors and elders, This was Xianmen Tianzong's second essence soul expert after sect master Lin Feng. After the bloody battle with the Shushan sword cultivators, he had instead exploded with peerless brilliance. His essence soul had shaken the heavens. Xiao Yan ignored Venerable Swordsman Little Shang, Venerable Swordsman Guan Chong, and the others. With a shake of the evil radiant overlord sword in his hand, his body became one with the sword, and he turned into a beam of bluish-purple flames that attacked Jie Luosher in the distance. In order to buy time for Xiao Yan, the Twin Poles Sky Peak was forced to withstand Jie Luosher's terrifying sword moves. Finally, it was completely damaged. The mountain cracked, and the lava that was spewing from the top of the mountain lost its vitality. Mr. Twin Poles Sky Peak, I will definitely repay your kindness. With a long roar, Xiao Yan's sword cut through the air and blocked in front of the Twin Poles Sky Peak. With a flip of his palm, a four-colored fire lotus blasted towards Jie Luosher. Jie Luosher was expressionless. He formed a sword seal and activated Guan Chong's sword. It turned into a black light screen that isolated the world and blocked in front of him. But this time, the violent firmament fire lotus exploded. In the center of the explosion, the void was burned into nothingness. Endless flames roared and directly shattered the black light screen. Jie Luosher's eyes flashed. He activated Xiao's sword and instantly flew out of the range of the fire attack. Then Xiao's sword transformed into Xiaoshang's sword. Rolling and vigorous sword light was like the Milky Way flowing in reverse, slashing towards Xiao Yan. 5 colored light flashed on top of Xiao Yan's head, and the 5 divine badges appeared once again. At this moment, this treasure had been completely refined by Xiao Yan. After going through the baptism of Xiao Yan's primordial soul, it was even more powerful. Although there were still cracks on the surface, it was even more powerful than when it was at its peak. The 5 large words on the surface of the badge flashed together, and the supreme will of the 5 great emperors faintly revealed itself. 5 balls of light flashed on the 5 large words, respectively showing the 5 phenomena of green lightning, golden flames, dark yellow light, clear water, and young shoots and old trees. They combined with Xiao Yan's 5 great true fires, and then the 5 phenomena gradually merged, turning into the appearance of a crimson world. This crimson world blocked Jie Luosher's Xiaoshang sword. Although the red light kept collapsing, it did not give an inch and stubbornly held on. Behind Xiao Yan, a large flag fluttered in the wind. There was a huge emperor character on the flag, and layers of black light appeared. As the black light flowed, it protected Xiao Yan in the center, exuding the aura of a powerful army protecting the emperor. No matter how powerful the enemy was, no matter how the sky fell and the earth cracked, it would still protect the safety of its ruler. The majesty of the emperor could not be shaken, and it would never be destroyed. Besides opening up a space inside, defense was the true strength of the immortal imperial flag. At this moment, even though Xiao Yan, who was at the first tier of the primordial soul realm, could not use its power to its fullest, it was still not to be underestimated. Working together with the 5 divine badges, red and black light alternated, protecting Xiao Yan. The sword Dao of a 3rd-tier primordial soul realm swordsman was too powerful. Even so, it constantly shattered the red and black light as it advanced. But Xiao Yan was not one to take a beating and not fight back. With a loud shout, another 4-colored fire lotus landed on Jie Luosher. The 4-colored fire lotus that had been extremely difficult to use in the past was finally at the level of ease for Xiao Yan, who had reached the primordial soul realm. At the same time, because of the increase in Xiao Yan's cultivation, its power was even more terrifying. And this time, Xiao Yan's 4-colored fire lotus was gold at the bottom. The petals flickered with red and blue light, 1 blue and 1 red, alternating. The middle layer was bluish-purple, and the top layer was pure gold. In the center of the lotus, there were a few wisps of black smoke, like thin pistols. Nanmingli fire, dark evil blaze, true sunfire, mysterious heaven calamity flame. This was the most powerful combination of the 4-colored fire lotus, and also the most powerful 4-colored fire lotus in history. Chapter 840. After Xiao Yan attained the primordial soul transformation realm, his control over the 5 great immortal fires had also improved. using the celestial flaming lotus on top of this foundation. The same four-colored flaming lotus was much more terrifying than the late Yuanying stage. Xiao Yan's four-colored flaming lotus at the late Yuanying stage had been blocked by Guanchang's sword. However, now that Xiao Yan had attained the primordial soul embodiment realm, his four-colored flaming lotus directly shattered the defense set up by Guanchang's sword. Seeing this, Jie Luosher frowned deeply. He held his index and middle fingers together like a sword, and the terrifying white chaotic hole reappeared at his fingertips. The heavenly immortal sword Qi that had previously defeated the twin celestial peaks shot out once again, meeting Xiao Yan's four-colored flaming lotus, with earth-shattering momentum. The celestial flaming lotus was directly pierced by the white sword Qi and exploded in the void. The surrounding space collapsed and was annihilated, turning into nothingness. The terrifying power of the flames also forcibly broke Jie Luosher's heavenly immortal sword Qi. Xiao Yan stared at Jie Luosher. Why does it look like you don't want to use your Mount Shu's special heavenly immortal sword Qi? It seems like it's not that you don't want to use it, but that you have some unspeakable difficulties. Oh, could it be that after seeing my master's heavenly immortal sword Qi, you've lost confidence in your Mount Shu's heavenly immortal sword Qi, causing your sword heart to become unstable? Xiao Yan suddenly grinned. But that's normal. It's not your fault. The divine light in Jie Luosher's eyes intensified, and a green steel longsword suddenly appeared in his hand. The longsword was extremely ordinary. It was not a Dharma treasure, not even an immortal treasure. It was just an ordinary green steel sword in the mortal world. However, with Jie Luosher's sword in hand, his momentum was naturally different. The sword will around him filled the sky, and his hoarse voice, which sounded like metal rubbing against each other, rang out. There's no point in arguing. In the end, it all depends on the sword in hand. As he spoke, Jie Luosher had already struck out with his sword. Endless sword light covered the sky and earth, flying toward Xiao Yan. For a moment, there was nothing in the world. It was as if there were only countless sword lights shining. Xiao Yan sneered. Domineering firmament fire lotuses appeared one after another, turning into a huge Taiji diagram in this barren space. This time, there were a total of 8 four-colored fire lotuses in the formation. The solar true fire, the pure yang true fire, the mysterious heavenly tribulation flame, and the nether evil flame formed the fire lotuses. However, they were not purely yin and yang. Instead, they were yin and yang opposites, yet they also blended with each other. The 8 fiery lotuses laid down an unprecedentedly powerful yin-yang burning sky array, as if turning this side of the world into a giant grinder, squeezing falling stone in the middle. The raging flames burned crazily, shattering the rays of sword light that Jie Luosher shot out, and attacking Jie Luosher himself. On the other side, the polar sky peak, who had been saved by Xiao Yan, dragged his broken body to help Gu Peng and Xiao Zhen. Jie Luosher looked at Xiao Yan expressionlessly and nodded slightly. He gently flicked the cyan steel longsword in his hand, making a long sword sound. A white sword Qi shot out from the tip of the cyan steel longsword and cut into the sea of fire. It continuously cut through Xiao Yan's yin-yang burning sky array with the power to split the sea. Xiao Yan's hands changed hand seals, and the yin-yang burning sky array kept operating to resist Jie Luosher's heavenly immortal sword Qi. This guy is a Dao integration realm cultivator, so he still has strength left. Xiao Yan frowned slightly and said without turning his head, "Zhen, you guys go first. I'll cover you." As he spoke, he laughed loudly. His whole body turned into a huge Taiji diagram that covered the sky. He had manifested his primordial spirit incarnation and pushed his power to the extreme. The power of the yin-yang burning sky array skyrocketed again, and it even began to burn and refine Jie Luosher's heavenly immortal sword Qi. Jie Luosher's eyes narrowed into slits, and a cold light flashed in them. No one dared to look him in the eye. His gaze was like a sharp sword light that could split mountains and seas. His right hand still held the longsword motionlessly, and his left hand formed a sword seal. Suddenly, 81 extremely terrifying white sword Qi that resembled angry dragons appeared. After spinning 9 times in the void, they tangled together. Usually, Jie Luosher's heavenly immortal sword Qi would only be a tiny wisp. However, at this moment, Each of the 81 sword qi was extremely thick and contained extremely terrifying power. They were condensed and pure. These 81 sword qi tangled together and turned into something that looked like a pure white fruit. Jie Luosher's Dao Integration Fruit, the Immortal 9 Revolution Fruit. Just like Xian Longxing's Immortal Sword Dao Fruit, it was the essence of the Sword Dao obtained from comprehending the principles of heaven and earth and analyzing the immortal sword qi. Jie Luosher pointed the long sword in his hand at Xiao Yan. The Immortal 9 Revolution Fruit spun in the air, and a dazzling light shot out. However, it was not a straight line of light. Instead, it twisted strangely in the void and spun in a spiral, stabbing toward Xiao Yan. After this spiral, the terrifying light had already destroyed all the sea of fire in its path. In the twisted void, space, time, and spirit qi were all messed up, and it broke through the layers of fire. Seeing this, Venerable Swordsman Little Shang and the others no longer had any worries and rushed forward to stop Xiao Zhen, and the others. Seeing this, Venerable Swordsman Little Shang and the others no longer had anything to worry about and rushed forward to stop Xiao Zhen, and the others. Then the entire yin-yang burning sky array erupted and completely exploded. Boom, 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 boom. The sound of explosions did not stop. The domineering true fire mixed with the powerful twisting power of yin and yang forcefully crushed Jie Luosher's Immortal 9 Revolution Sword Qi. In the next moment, an overwhelming rain of fire and meteors fell from the yin-yang burning sky array, smashing toward the heads of Venerable Swordsman Little Shang and the others like an apocalypse. Other than Venerable Swordsman Little Shang, who had the Little Shang sword in his hand and was still in good condition, Venerable Swordsman Guanchong, Venerable Swordsman Heavy Smoke, and Venerable Swordsman Broken Mountain Ninglang all felt a chill from the bottom of their hearts, as if death was right in front of them. The rain of fire that covered the sky and covered the earth, any one of the meteors could seriously injure them. Venerable Swordsman Little Shang shouted angrily, indicating for Venerable Swordsman Guanchong and the others to stop and not continue to chase after Xiao Zhen, and the others. He himself shook the Little Shang sword, and once again placed his primordial spirit into the sword. His void-returned physique and the Little Shang sword became one, transforming into a fierce sword light that was like a river of stars. It stretched across the sky and blocked this wave of fire and meteors. The sea of fire and meteors collided with the dazzling sword light wave after wave, causing the sword light to tremble uncontrollably. It swayed in the wind and rain, as if it could be destroyed at any time. Countless sword lights shattered and scattered in all directions like dregs. At this moment, another 9 revolutions immortal sword light flew through the air, annihilating a large number of fire and meteors, helping Venerable Swordsman Little Shang to block this wave of attack. Jie Luosher used the 9 revolutions immortal fruit of 9 revolutions of immortal heaven to protect him. He walked out of the sea of fire, the green steel sword in his hand shook, and the 9 revolutions immortal sword light once again slashed toward Xiao Yan. The sword light contained a grand concept of power that could pierce through heaven and earth. It was the ultimate sublimation after 10,000 swords became one, and it was also the starting point of the world's sword Dao. Xiao Yan's cold voice came from the yin-yang burning sky array. You want to die? Within the yin-yang burning sky array, 5 balls of flame suddenly appeared. Dark and evil, fierce and domineering, they were bluish-purple flames that seemed to want to destroy everything in the world. They were as dazzling as the sun, and the flames were like needles of pure gold. The flames were condensed, flickering with red and blue light, but they themselves were golden flames. Righteous, young, pure, like the milky white flames of the origin of all flames. Vicious and evil, greedy and vicious. They were black flames that wanted to devour everything in sight. The nether evil flame, the solar true fire, the Nanmingli fire, the pure young true fire, and the mysterious heaven tribulation flame. 5 of the 7 great true fires of the world were gathered together, and the monstrous flames began to fuse. Almost as soon as they did this, a violent power began to shake the void. The space where the flames were was instantly burned through. The originally dazzling flames gradually weakened. It was not that the power of the flames had decreased, but that the void had completely collapsed at the center of the 5 great true fires. Even light was swallowed up, unable to escape. Venerable Swordsman Little Shang and the others stared dumbly at the terrifying scene above the yin-yang burning sky array. Jie Luoshi's eyebrows slightly furrowed, and his expression became solemn. The green steel sword in his hand stabbed into his 9 revolutions immortal heaven Dao fruit, and the profound and powerful power of the Dao fruit condensed into the sword. In an instant, the sword in Jie Luoshi's hand had turned from an ordinary green steel sword into a white sword of qi. The body of the sword was like a coiling dragon, and 81 terrifying sword qi circled around it. Each sword qi went around 9 revolutions. But Jie Luoshi did not use this sword. He could vaguely feel that although Xiaoyan had not completely fused the 5 great true fires, it was precisely because of this that it was even more dangerous. The true fires had already fused, and the terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth had already formed. However, Xiaoyan had just formed his primordial spirit, and it was his first time trying to activate the 5-colored celestial fire lotus, so he could not control it freely. The situation was similar to when he first fused the true fires on Yujing Mountain. At this time, Jie Luoshi attacked with his sword, detonating the terrifying power. He and Xiaoyan would not be able to get away with it. The true fires shook violently, and the flaming Tai Chi diagram formed by Xiaoyan's primordial spirit was constantly tearing and collapsing. Every time the number of true fires fused, the difficulty and danger increased greatly. Seeing this, Xiaozhen, and the others immediately understood why Xiaoyan had asked them to leave first. If they did not leave, even they would be affected. The few of them immediately retreated and rushed towards the void teleportation array at the entrance of the Xiantian realm. Slowly, Xiaoyan's primordial spirit avatar withstood the terrifying merged true fires. The people from the Shushan sword sect could only stop. They wanted to take a detour to intercept Xiaozhen, and the others, but if they made any strange movements, the terrifying merged true fires would tremble, and they did not dare to act rashly. Looking at Xiaoyan who was blocking everyone's path, looking at Xiaozhen, and the rest who were gradually getting further away behind Xiaoyan, looking at the Grand Elder who was at the 3rd level of the primordial soul realm stopping in his tracks even after removing the falling rocks, not daring to take another step, Sword Venerable Little Shang, and the rest felt indescribably depressed. They thought about how he had single-handedly blocked Sword Venerable Little Shang, Sword Venerable Guanchong, Sword Venerable Heavy Mist, and Sword Venerable Ninglang of Broken Mountain during the late Yuanying period, making it difficult for the others to chase after Zen Master Dade. If Jie Luoshi had not interfered in such a dangerous situation, he could have even killed Sword Venerable Little Shang after defeating Sword Venerable Guanchong and the others. After that, in the midst of many dangerous situations, he had turned the pressure into motivation and attained the primordial spirit Dao. Even Jie Luoshi, who was at the Dao integration realm, had been blocked by him. Sword Venerable Little Shang and the others felt dizzy, and a sentence suddenly appeared in their minds. 1 man holds the pass, 10,000 cannot get through. Chapter 841. The Master of the Mystic Gate was a sect full of prodigies. This had already been publicly acknowledged by the entire divine land, and even the entire great heaven primordial world. Every time they advanced to a new realm, they could practically sweep away all the elites of that realm. It was as if their only opponents were from the same sect. And among them, Xiao Yanzhu Yi Wanglin and Shi Tianhao were the most eye-catching. Their existence seemed to be to tell the world that they were the only true geniuses. All other geniuses had to bow down before them. And today, among the 4 of them, one had finally taken that step and succeeded in proving his primordial soul Dao. Without reaching the primordial soul Dao, one's lifespan would eventually come to an end. Once the time was up, no matter how talented one was, no matter how amazing one was, no matter how unparalleled one's talent was, it would all turn to dust in the blink of an eye. The long river of time would always be one of the most effective touchstones to test the quality of a genius. And now, not only had Xiaoyan succeeded in proving his primordial soul Dao, but he had also once again proven his powerful mystical powers and dermic powers. At the 1st tier of the primordial soul Dao, he was able to take on a 3rd tier primordial soul Dao cultivator, Jie Luoshi. Jie Luoshi watched as Xiaoyan and the others slowly retreated. His gaze grew colder. He did not take the initiative to attack. Like a wolf chasing its prey, he chased after Xiao Yan. He seemed to be able to see a handsome youth standing in the flaming Tai Chi diagram. The youth's gaze was equally cold as he stared back at him. The incomplete version of the five-colored heavenly fire lotus exploded. It was an outcome of mutual destruction. Maintaining this state, Xiao Yan's primordial soul incarnation continued to be damaged. Parts of the flaming Tai Chi diagram kept cracking, and it was a huge burden on him. If this continued for too long, before Xiao Yan recovered from his injuries, he would probably not be able to activate the five-fire lotus again. The reason why Jie Luosher didn't lightly cross the line was because on one hand he didn't have confidence, on the other hand it was also because even though the current situation made him lose all face, he could bury a hidden worry for Xiao Yan. Even if Xiao Yan and the others successfully returned to Jade Jing Mountain, it still wouldn't be all good. The momentum of Xian annihilation had already been formed, and today's battle was just the beginning. Although this was what he said, it was impossible for Jie Luosher to not feel vexed. Being forced to such a state by a junior, who had just attained the primordial divinity realm, and was not even a fraction of his age, was no longer something that could be described as shame and humiliation. Xiao Yan also stared coldly at the falling stone. In the past, when he first tried to merge the 3 flame lotuses and the 4 flame lotuses, it was under the supervision of his master, Lin Feng. Therefore, there were no big risks, unlike this time, where he had to sharpen his spear at the last minute and was in great danger. How could Xiao Yan not see the heart of a tiger and a wolf when it came to breaking a falling stone? However, his mind remained as calm as before. Although he was unable to gain complete control over the 5 fire lotuses, due to the fact that he had only just condensed them, causing his soul to be constantly injured, Xiao Yan had actually been constantly studying the mysteries of fusing the 5 types of true fire. He had benefited greatly from this. Before his injuries were healed, it was indeed difficult for him to activate the 5 fire lotuses again. However, after his injuries were healed, he would be able to master this extremely terrifying and peerless divine ability faster than expected. He would also be able to have a deeper understanding of his own dermic powers. Just like when he was in the Golden Elixir period, he had recklessly cultivated the 3 great true fires. If he could correct his state of mind and focus on cultivation, he would be able to soar in the future instead. If there was a huge battle at Yujing Mountain, apart from dying together at the last moment, he did not intend to activate the incomplete and difficult to control 5-color heavenly fire lotuses there, because it would not be able to distinguish between friend and foe. Slowly, Xiao Yan retreated, and arrived at the void transportation matrix at the entrance of the Xiantian realm. The 2 poles Sky Peak had already returned to Yujing Mountain to recuperate. Xiao Zhen'er and Gu Peng were waiting there. The flame Tai Chi diagram turned back into Xiao Yan's appearance. He leaped into the void transportation matrix and left with Xiao Zhen'er and Gu Peng. As for the terrifying true fusion fire, it exploded between heaven and earth. In the fire, Xiao Yan stared at Jie Luosher, his eyes cold. "Thank you for sending me off." Jie Luosher's eyes narrowed, cold light radiating from them. He did not say anything, but Xiao Yan naturally understood the meaning in his eyes. "We will meet again soon." Xiao Yan coldly laughs and disappears into the void teleportation formation, while that horrifying blazing fire destroys the void teleportation formation along with it. Jie Luosher and the others retreated far away. Looking at the raging fire that could burn the sky and boil the sea, Jie Luosher was expressionless. The cold light in his eyes gradually disappeared, and he turned to look at Venerable Swordsman of Little Shang and the others. "Duan Yu Zhongyan, escort Guanchong back to the mountain. Xiaoshang, you go meet up with Li Xiong." Jie Luosher's voice was hoarse and harsh. "Xiaozi has already brought Qing Tian and the others over. I will go with them to Yujing Mountain." Venerable Swordsman of Little Shang, Venerable Swordsman Guanchong, Ninglang, and Venerable Swordsman Zhongyan nodded. "We will do as Elder Jie says." The few of them turned into sword light and left. Jie Luosher's gaze pierced through the void, and looked in the direction of Yujing Mountain. "There I can feel." At the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain, Cloud Mirror City and Cloud Peak were no longer as noisy as before. In Cloud Mirror City, everyone related to Xianmen Tianzong, all the foundational disciples on Cloud Peak, and the outer sect stewards had been moved to Yujing Mountain. At the top of Yujing Mountain, in front of the All Heavens Hall, Li Yuanfang was standing there. Zen Master Dade, who had sent him back, and the two Poles Sky Peak, who had just arrived, were currently recuperating, hoping to quickly recover their combat power. The void opened, and Xiao Yan and the others landed on the mountain together. Li Yuanfang cupped his fists at Xiao Yan, eldest senior brother. He could not continue speaking. The usually calm and composed Li Yuanfang's eyes were slightly red at this moment. Xiao Yan smiled, walked forward, and patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry, I'm fine. Not only am I fine, but I've also successfully broken through the final shackles and become a primordial soul cultivator. Li Yuanfang nodded. Yes, I know. Eldest senior brother, your dermic power and aura are very different from before. It can be said that you've been reborn and have undergone earth-shaking changes. He cupped his fists again and said, Congratulations, eldest senior brother, on becoming a primordial soul cultivator and achieving longevity. Then he bowed to Xiao Zhen'er and Gu Peng. Thank you, Miss Zhen'er and Senior Gu, for your help. After greeting each other, Xiao Yan asked, Second junior brother hasn't come out of seclusion yet? Li Yuanfang shook his head. Not yet. He's in the Xiantian Time Light Cave. This time, the situation is special. Second senior brother can't estimate the specific time. Xiao Yan took a deep breath. What about the people of the Xiantian realm you brought back? Li Yuanfang answered. They're still in the small world formed by Senior Feng Biji's dermic power. They're in the Great Hall of All Heavens. Xiao Yan looked at the Great Hall of All Heavens. Master once said that many of the buildings in the sect were created by him. They're very sturdy and hard to be destroyed by enemies. However, other than the main hall, the other buildings don't have the ability to defend and protect themselves. They're just passively sturdy. If the restrictions of the Great Hall of All Heavens are broken, it'll become the same as the other buildings. So, we'll settle everyone in the Great Hall of All Heavens for now. If the situation is really critical, we'll send everyone to Ing Ocean. The 3 mountains of Ing Ocean can't leave Ing Ocean, but in Ing Ocean, we have 2 mountains in our hands. We won't allow anyone to humiliate us. This is the last way out for everyone. Slowly, Xiao Yan said. What he meant was that he had decided to defend Yujing Mountain to the death. He wouldn't retreat even if he died in battle. Li Yuanfang asked. Everyone knows that our sect possesses the immortal mountain of Yingzhou. Although the Great Zhou dynasty has lost the immortal mountain of Fangzhang, it seems that they have a deep understanding of the immortal mountain in the past 2 years. Once we connect the void teleportation formation and start the teleportation, the Great Zhou Empire might find some clues. Xiao Yan said, We'll just act according to the original plan. We'll first activate the void teleportation formation in Yingzhou Mountain to attract the enemy's attention. Then we'll activate the void teleportation formation in Penglai Mountain and send everyone over. We'll immediately stop after a feint at Yingzhou Mountain. After all, the Great Zhou Empire has lost Fangzhang Mountain. It's already not bad to be able to monitor the movements of a mountain. If we control it well, the enemy can only return empty-handed. Li Yuanfang's gaze also landed on the Great Hall of All Heavens. In this case, the secret that our sect has Penglai Mountain can't be hidden within the sect. We can only expose it. Xiao Yan said, just pay attention to control it. This is also the last step. Prepare for the worst. Li Yuanfang took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, There's a message from the Great Qin dynasty. This time, at least the Shushan Sword sect, the Reincarnation sect, and the Eastern Heavenly Gate are coming for us. Xiao Yan smiled. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. We can only fight. He came to his senses. Oh right, how's little junior sister doing? Li Yuanfang said. She brought second senior brother's talisman. It should be of use when the time comes. She's already gone to prepare. Xiao Yan nodded. I have to thank that fellow Taoist Chu Yang. You should also go and prepare. This time, we'll be facing a huge battle. In the past, it was Master who shielded us. Now it's time for us to share his burdens. Li Yuanfang cupped his fists and bowed. Yes, senior brother. At this moment, there were many balls of air floating in the All Heavens Great Hall. Within each ball of air, there were many lights and shadows flashing. They were like mini-worlds, and in each mini-world, there were countless people. One of the balls of air was filled with cultivators from beyond Heaven Mountain. Among the group of cultivators, a black-robed youth sat cross-legged silently. It was Chu Yang. Opposite him was a haggard Li Baitao. Li Baitao stared at Chu Yang. So senior brother sect leader and junior brother Meng contacted Xianmen Tianzong through you. However, you suddenly went out this time. Although I didn't personally follow you, there was a Yuanying cultivator from the Shushan sword sect. How did you hide from him and secretly return to beyond Heaven Mountain? Even if you have the Sky Sword talisman of the Northwest Serene Heavenly Sword left behind by the ancient Heavenly Gate, as a Golden Elixir intermediate stage cultivator, you can't hide from a Yuanying cultivator. Chu Yang, who was at the Golden Elixir intermediate stage, smiled. Second martial uncle, that's because I never left the mountain. Li Baitao frowned. That's impossible. I saw you leave. You can't hide from me. There's no way someone is impersonating you. Chu Yang smiled. His aura immediately changed. His cultivation reached the Golden Elixir advanced stage. Li Baitao was surprised. Your cultivation hiding technique can actually hide from the eyes of a Yuanying cultivator? However, the person who went down the mountain, his expression suddenly became strange. Could it be that you, a Golden Elixir advanced stage cultivator, refined a Golden Elixir intermediate stage clone? Chapter 842. In response to Li Baitao's question, Chu Yang smiled. I've had some fortuitous encounters in the past few years. Li Baitao frowned slightly. I can roughly sense that your actual age is different from your appearance. You've probably cultivated in a space or grotto heaven with accelerated time. However, to be able to reach late-stage Golden Elixir, your speed is truly unexpected. If I remember correctly, during the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Assembly, the sixth disciple of the Taoist sect's master, Li Yuanfang, was early-stage Golden Elixir just like you. Now you're even faster than him. Li Baitao said lightly, such talent is truly shocking. In the past, the few of us were blind and didn't see that you were a diamond in the rough. This time, you've made a great contribution. Perhaps you can get a position in Xianmen Tianzong? But you have to remember, everything will have to wait for the Celestial Sect of Wonders to survive this calamity. Chu Yang looked at Li Baitao and slowly shook his head. Daoist Leander sect leader Lin isn't what you think, second martial uncle. As for me, I'm a disciple of Beyond Heaven Mountain. I'm Master's disciple. This will never change. We've come this far just to have a way out for Beyond Heaven Mountain. In the end, sect leader, Master, and I just made a different choice from second martial uncle. Li Baitao smiled coldly. A choice that placed Beyond Heaven Mountain in great danger. Chu Yang looked at Li Baitao and suddenly smiled. However, his smile was very cold. Second martial uncle, back then, you relied on Great Qin's minister Wu Qingru and colluded with Shu Mountain under Wu Qingrou's orders. You even attempted to assassinate Great Zhou's Prince Liang Qian. Ask yourself, have you thought about the consequences? Beyond Heaven Mountain will be the first to suffer the wrath of the Great Zhou dynasty. You created a conflict between Shu Mountain and the Great Zhou dynasty, and after Wu Qingru resigned and went into seclusion, you decided to join Shu Mountain completely. How much of this was for the sect, and how much was for yourself? When Chu Yang mentioned Wu Qingrou's name, Li Baitao's gaze dimmed. Senior brother sect leader and junior brother Meng also know? You knew it earlier than me. After Chu Yang finished speaking, Li Baitao sighed. I knew that Prime Minister Wu wanted to assassinate Great Zhou's Prince Liang Qian, but I didn't expect it to be to incite a conflict between Shushan and Great Zhou. After all, Great Qin and Great Zhou are enemies. Back then, the mission I received was only to deliver information and guide the assassin to Liang Qian's exact location. Silently, Chu Yang said, but after the assassination is successful, Wu Qingru will expose you, implicating our main sect, which has already attached itself to Shushan. Then, she will use many other methods to incite conflict between the Great Zhou and Shushan, causing the conflict between the two powers to escalate. This is Wu Qingrou's doing. She made the Mount Shu Sword sect and the Great Zhou dynasty face off, focusing all of their attention on each other. Meanwhile, Great Qin used this time to clean up its own internal problems and remove the tumor. Wu Qingru was the one who planned the game, while the Great Zhou dynasty and the Mount Shu Sword sect were the players. It's a pity that Beyond Heaven Mountain was a pawn in Wu Qingru's plan. After playing its role, it was eaten up. However, Liang Qian didn't die in the end. Many changes happened later, which exceeded Wu Qingru's expectations. Xianmen Tianzong suddenly rose to power and became enemies with Xushan. Only then did Beyond Heaven Mountain escape a calamity. Chu Yang let out a long breath. Now it's the second calamity. Li Baitao's face was ashen. He let out a long sigh and fell silent. Chu Yang also fell silent. He didn't continue to speak, nor did he plan to do anything else. He stayed in the spiritual world created by his spiritual power, quietly waiting for the storm to arrive before leaving. Sitting and waiting for death had never been his style. However, the impending war was not something he could participate in during the Golden Elixir period. More accurately, most people could not participate in it. The level of the two sides was too high. However, Chu Yang's state of mind was as calm as ever. A sword seemed to ring out from the depths of his soul. If we can survive this calamity, Beyond Heaven Mountain can enjoy a period of peace. I can also move. Chu Yang didn't leave his doppelganger here. Instead, he stayed with Wu Yunliang, Meng Chaoran, and the others. This was also a form of attitude. Xiaowu. Chu Yang closed his eyes slightly. The only feeling he had at this moment was a sense of loss. He also found it a little funny. You protected me this time. Although Xiao Yan and the others had escaped unscathed against Jie Luoshi, the Grand Supreme Elder of Xushan, and a third-tier primordial spirit swordsman, the twin poles Sky Peak and Monk Dade were severely injured. Xianmen Tianzong's losses were not light either. The only consolation was that Xiao Yan had broken through his bottleneck in this battle. He had proven his primordial spirit, and his strength had improved greatly. On Xushan's side, Sword Venerable Taiyin and Sword Venerable Guanchong had been seriously injured. Guanchong could only return to Xushan to recuperate. He had also withdrawn from the siege of Yujing Mountain. Among them, Sword Venerable Guanchong's injuries were especially serious. After Xiao Yan's reward, he was lucky to recover. It was very likely that he would never be able to refine his spirit and return to the void again in this life. In the battle with Jie Luoshi, Xiao Yan's primordial spirit incarnation had also been injured. He was now making use of the time to recuperate. However, he knew that he did not have much time. Although the void transportation formation had been destroyed, the entrance to the Xiantian realm was located in the southern foothills of Kunlun Mountain. It was not far from Yujing Mountain, which was located in the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain. Jie Luoshi was a great sword cultivator at the third tier of the primordial spirit transformation realm. He would arrive very soon. However, the ones who arrived first weren't the ones who dislodged the falling rocks. Before they dislodged the falling rocks, not even a moment after Xiao Yan and the others stepped onto Jing Mountain, there was already a large army of other people pressing down on Jing Mountain. Above the clouds, Yujing Mountain floated in mid-air. At this moment, in the southern sky of Yujing Mountain, the void suddenly split open. Thick clouds surged out, and a few extremely powerful auras emerged. The invisible pressure caused the mirror-like lake beneath the clouds to undulate. Turbid waves surged into the sky. The thick clouds dispersed, revealing a group of people. The person in the lead was a youth who looked to be about 14 or 15 years old. His face was like jade, and he was handsome. He was dressed in white and looked otherworldly. It was as if he was a celestial being who had descended to the mortal world. He tapped the tips of his feet lightly and walked in the void. He did not exude much of a terrifying aura, but everyone else followed closely behind him. The person who had come was the former sect master of the reincarnation sect, the current sect master of the reincarnation sect, Shi Tianfang, a mighty cultivator of the Dao integration stage. Two people followed behind Shi Tianfang. One was a middle-aged man with elegant features. He was dressed in a brocade robe, and had an exquisite little wine gourd hanging from his waist. There was also a leather pouch hanging beside the wine gourd. The pouch jingled as he moved. He was the sect master of the Dao integration stage like Shi Tianfang, Zhang and Rui. The other person was a tall and thin middle-aged Taoist with a stiff expression. He was the sect master of the Hungry Ghost sect, Taoist Sky Ghost of the Void Return stage. Shi Tianfang, Zhang and Rui, and Taoist Sky Ghost all looked at Yujing Mountain, which was covered by a sea of purple clouds. Even Taoist Heavenly Ghost's dull and lifeless eyes revealed a bit of fanaticism. Behind them were some other mighty cultivators of the reincarnation sect. This time, the reincarnation sect had practically turned out in full force. Zhang and Rui looked at Yujing Mountain and sighed. It really is an immortal mountain. Taoist Sky Ghost looked down at the empty cloud mirror city and said in his stiff and emotionless voice, Xianmen Tianzong is ready. Zhang and Rui nodded. They have given up on their peripheral forces. All related people should have retreated to Yujing Mountain in order to concentrate on defending against us. Presumably, the Polar Sky Peak and Monk Dada from the Mystic Heaven Realm have also returned. Zhang and Rui turned to look at Shi Tianfang. Sect Master, Wang Lin, one of the top 4 disciples of the Master of the Celestial Gate, and the other 2 disciples, Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing, have not returned to the mountain yet. Should we? Shi Tianfang shook his head. There is no need to stop them. They are part of the plan anyway. It doesn't matter even if they return to the mountain. Zhang and Rui smiled. The Master of the Celestial Gate is indeed full of monstrous geniuses, especially Xiao, Zhu Wang and Shi. They are amazing. The Master of the Celestial Gate is unfathomable. He is not as good as the Taishu Taoist, but who knows if he has other secrets. On the other hand, when I look at Xiao, Zhu Wang and Shi, I can't help but think about the legends of the 4 heroes of the Great Void Realm. Although I haven't personally witnessed the might of the 4 heroes of the Great Void Realm, and the 4 of them are still at the late nascent soul stage, their terrifying potential is indeed somewhat similar. Zhang and Rui took out a wine cup from his pouch and poured himself a drink. He said with a smile, Maybe we can call them the 4 Great Void Heroes? Unfortunately, we can't kill them. Otherwise, not to mention the Master of the Celestial Gate, the Taishu Temple will not agree. Taoist Sky Ghost said woodenly, Raising a tiger will only invite disaster. Zhang and Rui shook his head and smiled. There are gains and losses. There is nothing we can do about it. Shi Tianfang said calmly. If they really don't know what's good for them, then kill them. We can't let them block the way. Zhang and Rui nodded with a smile and looked at Yujing Mountain. Speaking of which, the strongest of the 4 Great Void Heroes should be the second disciple, Zhu Yi, right? The Heavenly Ghost Taoist said. His true body is at the late nascent soul stage, and he has many magical treasures with him. He almost killed Xiao Qingcheng, who is at the nascent divinity incarnation stage of the Eastern Heavenly Gate. Xiao Qingcheng has the Yang Sky Lantern, so her strength is at the top of the nascent divinity incarnation stage, but she is still not his match. In the Ying Ocean, he refined the body of the ancient Hao Yang Dao venerate Wang Hao and turned it into his clone. At this point, Taoist Sky Ghost's voice, which had always been flat, trembled slightly. Heh, a late Yuanying cultivator refined a clone of the Void Return stage. The most important thing is that after he possesses this avatar, the few magic treasures of the transformation stage and spirit nurturing stage can all be used to their full power. Therefore, his strength is firmly above the other disciples of the Celestial Sect of Wonders. At this time in front of them, separated by the Jade Capital Mountain, the sky in the north also split open, and 2 white-bearded old men walked out from it. Both of them were clad in sky-blue long robes. The one in the lead looked across the void at Shi Tianfang and the others. He smiled. In the past, who would have thought that a bastard son of Zhu Honggu who had been ordinary for 15 years would have such a fortune? Chapter 843. The newcomer had white hair and a ruddy complexion. He was the sect master of the East Heaven Gate, a Dao integration powerhouse, Xiaodong Tian. The old man behind him was the Grand Elder of the East Heaven Gate, a Void Return powerhouse, Dao Venerate Dongming. Zhang and Rui smiled. Sect Master Xiao, you're too kind. He brought the wine cup to his lips and took a sip. Then he smiled. Other than Zhu Yi, who is somewhat related to you, The other 3 of the 4 heroes of the celestial sect are also extraordinary. Xiao Yan, the eldest disciple of the celestial sect's sect master, is extremely talented. He can actually cultivate 5 types of true fire at the same time, which is unprecedented. He can even fuse different true fires. The degree of violence of this mystical power can be said to be the best among the various mystical powers cultivated by the 4 heroes of the celestial sect. I dare say that any void return cultivator would have to be careful if they encountered him, let alone a primordial spirit embodiment realm cultivator. At the very least, this Xiao Yan can fight to the death. In the eyes of the primordial spirit embodiment realm powerhouses, Zhu Yi was the strongest among the 4 heroes of the celestial sect, but Xiao Yan was the most annoying. This was because the instant explosive power of the firmament fire lotus would cause Xiao Yan to lose his combat power and be trampled upon for a short period of time. The problem was that almost no opponent of the same level could withstand his explosive power. Even people who were a bit stronger than him, as long as they weren't strong enough to crush him, Xiao Yan at the very least would be able to end up in mutual destruction. This was a very unreasonable thing. If you can withstand my attack, then I'll lose. If you can't, then I'll blast you to death. You're stronger than me. As long as you're not too much stronger, you'll still be at the bottom of my coffin. Zhang Enrui poured himself another cup of wine. The 3rd disciple of the celestial sect's master, Wang Lin, has a dharma treasure called the mysterious sky god sealing flag. If it can only imprison primordial spirit embodiment realm cultivators, then it's fine. If it can imprison void return cultivators, then it'll be a little more interesting. In that case, his combat ability will probably surpass most void return cultivators. If void return cultivators don't have dharma treasures, then I'm afraid they'll be at a disadvantage. As he laughed, Zhang Enrui glanced at Dao Master Dongming, who was standing behind Xiao Dongtian. Dao Lord Dongming also smiled faintly. His gaze swept across the area behind Zhang Enrui. There stood the cultivators of the human Dao, and there was also a return to void stage mighty figure among them. However, everyone knew that the human path cultivators of the reincarnation sect were very weak in actual combat. Zhang Enrui was not offended and continued with a smile. As for the disciple of the Mystic Gates Master, there's no need to say more. He has 2 creation divine lights and has been in and out of Tianhuang mainland for the past few years. There's news that he once killed a demon sage in the mid-stage of the Yuanying realm, and severely injured a Swanni, cutting its flesh. Someone has seen him in the void battlefield. He has already successfully cultivated the Dharma idol, and advanced to the late Yuanying realm. He even heavily injured a primordial true spirit realm great demon. I wonder if he has returned? If I do return, I'm sure I'll have few opponents below the Dao integration stage. Dao Sovereign Dongming smiled and said, Sect Master Zhang is definitely not afraid. Zhang Enrui laughed. That might not be the case. I've never been good at fighting, but I can boast that I'm the best in wine tasting. Let's stop chatting. We should head down. Shi Tianfang, who had been silent all this while, said, The people from Shu Mountain will definitely arrive, but there's no need to wait. Xiao Zhu Wang and Shi are indeed extremely talented, but they're still a little immature before they reach the Essence Soul stage. The Mystic Gates Master is not on the mountain, so the most difficult thing to deal with on Yujing Mountain right now is still the protective array and the double pole sky peak at the Mahayana stage. However, they're not a problem. As Shi Tianfang spoke, he was already walking toward Yujing Mountain. Xiao Dongtian stopped for a while longer before moving forward as well. The few of them were in the mood to chat here, but it was not because they had time to spare. Instead, they were using their divine senses to continuously probe and analyze the defensive restrictions on Yujing Mountain. After getting a rough idea of the situation, they would immediately take action. As Shi Tianfang walked, he looked at Xiao Dongtian. His eyes flickered slightly. No wonder you're willing to be a pawn for the Great Zhou this time. Not only you, but even Dao Master Dongming came with you. You've really benefited a lot from the Great Zhou dynasty. Black Heaven Seal, you've fallen from the incarnation stage since the destruction of the heavenly gates in the ancient times. Now that you've finally returned to the Mahayana stage, it's really worth celebrating. A brilliance flashed beside Xiao Dongtian, and the void opened up. A man in black walked out. He had a square face and looked dignified. On his right palm was a pitch-black ancient seal. It was one of the 9 treasures of the ancient heavenly gates, the northern black heaven seal. Compared to when he was still at the peak of the incarnation stage in the Ing Ocean, the current black heaven seal did not exude much terrifying aura. However, the vast and majestic feeling was even more vast. Looking at this pitch-black ancient seal, it was as if looking at the sky above his head. Seeing the black heaven seal, light and shadow flickered above Shi Tianfeng's head. A huge, slowly spinning roulette appeared in the void. The roulette was evenly divided into 6 pieces. Each piece was different in color, and there were all kinds of carvings on it. Those carvings looked firm and deep, but they were constantly changing. The white piece emitted a gentle light. Ethereal figures appeared on the carvings one after another. Although their specific appearances could not be seen clearly, all of them had a kind of ethereal, aloof, solemn, and sacred feeling. At the same time, they showed the rising and falling of the sun and moon, the alternation of the stars, the growth of all living things, and other phenomena of the world. They seemed endless and mysterious. The blood-colored piece was dark and murderous. It was extremely oppressive and made people feel crazy and bloody. It was as if it could awaken the purest killing intent in the depths of everyone's heart. The figures on the carvings were entangled and attacked each other. Their killing intent soared into the sky. The black piece showed layers of hell. There were blazing flames, quicksand, ice, mountains of knives, snakes. It was a scene of endless suffering in hell. It made people feel deep despair when they saw it, and they could only numbly sink into it. The green piece was engraved with many twisted human faces. Jealousy, pain, resentment, rage, sorrow. Countless resentful and malevolent faces, countless mournful and hungry ghosts, opened their mouths and roared incessantly. The purple piece had carvings of all kinds of animals. The smaller ones were snakes, insects, rats, ants, pigs, dogs, cows, and sheep. The bigger ones were rhinoceros, elephants, and even dragons, Kuan Peng, Great Peng. There were so many of them. The last piece was colorful, and the carvings changed the fastest. It exuded a feeling of the myriad changes of the mortal world. Among the many carvings, one could vaguely see cities and villages, joys and sorrows, love and hate, and all kinds of human entanglements. It was as if there were 6 layers of heaven and earth, 6 worlds, and 6 kinds of laws and principles. They rotated slowly and ceaselessly. At the center of the 6 pieces of the roulette, a human face appeared. It looked calmly at Xiao Dongtian, the black heaven seal, and Dong Ming Dao Venerate. Slowly Xiao Dongtian nodded and said, "The 6 Paths Wheel." The 6 Paths Wheel was the treasure of the reincarnation sect. It was a peak Mahayana-level treasure, and the natal treasure of the reincarnation Taoist. After the reincarnation Taoist died, the 6 Paths Wheel existed in the reincarnation sect's heavenly path. Its existence was also one of the reasons why the heavenly path was known as the strongest of the 6 paths. Even the black heaven seal frowned when he saw the treasure. He was not afraid of the 6 Paths Wheel when he was at his peak, but now that he had just returned to the Mahayana level, he was a little less confident against the 6 Paths Wheel. Silently, the human face in the center of the 6 Paths Wheel said, "Let's finish this quickly. Let the battle Azura join us." Shi Tianfeng nodded and drew a line in the air with his right hand. Suddenly, a blood-red crack appeared in the air. It was like a spatial wound, and blood was dripping out. Slowly, a jet-black saber emerged from the blood-red crack. It was filled with a shocking killing intent. Even in the reincarnation sect's camp, some of the weaker nascent divinity incarnation cultivators felt restless. A strong desire to kill rose from the bottom of their hearts. Only after circulating their mana did they manage to stabilize their state of mind and quell the killing intent in their hearts. Xiao Dongtian's expression remained unchanged, but Dao Venerate Dongming frowned. The saber's killing intent was so strong that it did not even need to release its own aura to drive most of the cultivators below the nascent divinity level into a frenzy. They would be devoured by the killing intent in their hearts and turn into madmen who only knew how to kill. A hand appeared on the saber's hilt. It belonged to a young man dressed in black. He had a head full of blood-red hair. His eyes shone with a red light that thirsted for battle and slaughter. Apart from the Six Paths of Reincarnation sect's Six Paths of Reincarnation sect, the Shura battle saber. Originally, it belonged to the Azura Tao of the Six Paths of Reincarnation. The Heavenly Tao had the Six Paths wheel, and the Azura Tao had invested a huge amount of resources into the Azura saber, raising it from the incarnate level to the Mahayana level. Only then was it able to withstand the pressure from the Six Paths wheel. However, after Shi Tianfang and the others defeated the Azura Tao, Mo Shulua was imprisoned, and the Six Paths of Reincarnation were unified. The Azura battle saber finally chose to submit to Shi Tianfang. This time, it accompanied him to Yujing Mountain. 2 Tao integration cultivators, 2 Mahayana Dharma treasures, and a group of powerful cultivators like the Sky Ghost Taoist made Xiao Dongtian, the Black Heaven Seal, and Tao Venerate Dongming seem a little weak. However, Xiao Dongtian did not care. The existence of him and the Black Heaven Seal was the source of his confidence. Whether it was attacking Yujing Mountain now or facing Lin Feng in the future, the reincarnation sect could not shake him off. Moreover, he had the Great Zhou dynasty behind him. Shi Tianfang did not plan to fight alone. He looked at Xiao Dongtian and said calmly, "I can give you the embryo of the creation artifact from the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, but the reincarnation sect will take the Yujing Mountain." As far as the outside world knew, apart from Yingzhou Immortal Mountain and Yinghai, the most valuable things in Xianmen Tianzong were Yujing Mountain and the Creation Dharma Treasure Embryo White Jade Pillar. The Reincarnation Sect and the East Heavenly Gate each had one. This was also one of the reasons why Shi Tianfang did not wait for the Mount Shu Sword sect. As for how the treasures would be divided, it would depend on the strength of each sect. The Reincarnation Sect had sent out almost all of their forces, so Shi Tianfang naturally wanted to get the biggest share. This time he had actually come for Yujing Mountain. It would be best if he could get the other treasures, but his main goal was this immortal mountain that could allow him to freely travel between the heavens. Chapter 844. Xiao Dongtian sneered inwardly at Shi Tianfang's suggestion. Whoever occupied Yujing Mountain could be like Lin Feng in the past, able to attack and defend at will. After this battle, once Lin Feng returns, it can be said that the families will join forces to suppress or even kill him whose strength has greatly decreased. But those who occupy Yujing Mountain, if they want to fight, they can fight. If they don't want to fight, they can just abandon the others and run away, letting the remaining people bear Lin Feng's wrath. However, the reincarnation sect was too powerful, so Xiao Dongtian didn't argue with him. After all, the final result would only be known after the battle. Even if Lin Feng wasn't here, Xianmen Tianzong wasn't weak either. Who knew what would happen after the battle? The main reason for the agreement now was to avoid internal strife before the allied army had even truly fought with the Celestial Sect of Wonders. Xiao Dongtian smiled. "I have no objections to Sect Master Shi's suggestion." Shi Tianfang nodded. He knew what Xiao Dongtian was thinking. Whether the agreement was fulfilled or not depended on the strength of the two sides. But he was confident that even after the battle, he could still suppress East Heaven Gate. Mount Shu Sword Sect, on the other hand, would be hard to deal with. Let's finish this quickly. Shi Tianfang made up his mind. He descended towards Yujing Mountain with the Six Paths Wheel and the Shura Saber. Zhang and Rui, the Sky Ghost Taoist, and the other reincarnation sect experts followed closely behind. Xiao Dongtian, Xian Tianyin, and Tao Master Dongming didn't plan to sit back and watch. Instead, they rushed towards Yujing Mountain with the reincarnation sect experts. Although Lin Feng wasn't here, Xianmen Tianzong couldn't be underestimated. This wasn't the time for them to sit back and watch. When they got close to Yujing Mountain, countless rays of light flickered in the air above the mountain peak. They formed a strange pattern with strange trajectories and patterns. As soon as Shi Tianfang, Xiao Dongtian, and the others got close, the light became clear and formed a huge array, isolating them from the outside world. The Celestial Gate Masters Yin and Yang Life and Death Array. Xiao Dongtian let out a sigh. The level of exquisiteness is indeed extraordinary. No wonder it could trap the nemesis of all formations, the Supreme Formation Breaking Drum, in West Hill City. In this world, I'm afraid only the Supreme Void Yin Yang Formation, and the great immortal thousand phenomenon sword formation, can be mentioned in the same breath among all the existing formations in the divine land. Shi Tianfang said lightly. The advantage of this formation is that it doesn't need to rely on the terrain, and it can move freely like the 9 luminary sky-crumbling formation of the demon race. But it also has a disadvantage, and that is it must be controlled by an expert with top-notch magical power. The master of the celestial sect of wonders is not here right now. Even if someone else were to control and activate this formation, its power would definitely be greatly reduced. It would not be able to stop us. Zhong Yu and the 6 paths will didn't move, but the Shura saber turned into a bloody ray and slashed at the yin-yang life and death array. The violent bloody ray seemed to want to slaughter all the living beings in the world. The death chi that pervaded the air darkened the sky. Although the target of the attack was Yujing Mountain and the yin-yang life and death array, below Yujing Mountain, with the mirror lake of the cloud peak as the center, all living beings within a radius of several thousand miles were contaminated by the death chi and the murderous aura, and died. Although the yin-yang life and death array shone brightly, the Shura saber still tore a gap in it. Shi Tianfang, Xiao Dongtian, and the others immediately entered the array through the gap and rushed toward Yujing Mountain. At this moment, in the All Heavens Palace at the top of Yujing Mountain, Xiao Yan sneered and looked at the scene. He said to Li Yuanfang beside him, "Do it." Li Yuanfang nodded, and left the All Heavens Palace. He flew to the branch of the Mystic Heaven treasure tree in the distance, where another identical Li Yuanfang was sitting. However, this Li Yuanfang had the cultivation base of the late golden elixir. This was Li Yuanfang's real body. He, who was at the middle stage of the elixir realm, was just a doppelganger. At this moment, a spot of light shot out from between the eyebrows of his real body, connecting with the yin and yang life and death formation above Yujing Mountain. The incarnation took out a talisman and cast it out. An azure dragon shadow emerged in the air, and let out a mighty dragon roar. Then it coiled around Li Yuanfang's body. It was Zhu Yi's dragon ascending skill. It was a mysterious realm of constantly improving and forging ahead. It was compatible with Li Yuanfang's own magical sense and dharma power, constantly raising his cultivation base. There was a faint flash of thunder in the void, but it did not fall. A clear light flashed above Li Yuanfang's head, and a purple golden elixir emerged. The azure dragon shadow coiled around the golden elixir, and turned into a tiny baby shadow. Its facial features were exactly the same as when Li Yuanfang was born. This was a talisman that Zhu Yi had specially refined before his closed-door training. It forcibly helped Li Yuanfang shape his virtual soul, and temporarily raised his cultivation base from the late golden elixir to the early Yuanying realm. It was just a virtual soul. At this moment, Li Yuanfang's strength was definitely not as good as his own when he formed his nascent soul and advanced to the early Yuanying realm, but it was already stronger than the late golden elixir. As soon as the virtual soul appeared, Li Yuanfang immediately felt that his connection with the yin and yang life and death formation was even closer. This formation was the foundation for his first connection with Xianmen Tianzong. In the Arctic Ice Sea, Li Yuanfang saw the mysterious yin and yang life and death formation for the first time. When he was young, he was fascinated by it. Even if it was just a change of the formation pattern, he might not be able to understand it even if he tried his best to watch it from the outside. However, Li Yuanfang was still completely immersed in it. For him, the mysterious and extraordinary formation pattern talisman was the most wonderful scene in the world. After that, he became the disciple of Lin Feng. Finally, he could fulfill his wish and concentrate on studying this formation. Now he had the opportunity to personally manipulate this powerful formation in the great Tianyuan world. But Li Yuanfang's eyes were still calm and peaceful. He was completely immersed in the changes of the formation, concentrating on it. Under his control, in the yin and yang life and death formation, countless talisman patterns suddenly operated. The crazy killing intent and death chi of the Azura katana were all transformed into the majestic chi of life. The momentum of the Azura katana, which was about to destroy everything, was suddenly stopped. Shi Tianfang's eyes slightly narrowed. The next moment, he found that under the operation of the endless chi of life, the gap created by the Azura katana had closed, and he and the others were also trapped in the formation. After the change of life and death, it was the change of yin and yang. In the formation, the pure yang real fire was burning, and the netherworld amethyst was flashing with a strange luster. The inside of the formation seemed to have become a black and white world. Pure yang qi and yin qi operated together, and like a huge millstone, it crushed toward Shi Tianfang and the others. Xiao Yan's yin and yang heaven-burning formation was a variant of the yin and yang life and death formation, in which the explosive power of the firmament flaming lotus was added. The yin and yang heaven-burning formation was built by Xiao Yan's own magic power. But the yin and yang life and death formation was a huge formation as vast as the sky. Li Yuanfang only needed to guide and control the whole operation. Shi Tianfang's expression remained unchanged. Slowly rotating 6 paths wheel beside him, the rotation speed suddenly increased. Pure white, crimson, pitch black, deep purple and dark green lights, as well as a multicolored light, began to revolve in the air, expanding incessantly. It was like a real reincarnation of the universe, rotating together with thousands of creatures, pulling everything around to the center of the wheel. The huge power even made the yin and yang rotation of the yin and yang life and death formation unstable, and there was a tendency to lose control. Li Yuanfang remained calm, and controlled the formation to change again. This time he did not aim to hurt the enemy, but to trap the enemy firmly in the formation. At this time, the sound of running water suddenly came into the ears of Shi Tianfang, Xiao Dongtian and the others. At first it was almost inaudible, but after a moment, it sounded like a tsunami. Then, inside the yin and yang life and death formation, they saw a seemingly endless black ocean pouring into the formation, turning into a roaring black tide and rushing toward them. The seawater was endlessly cold, bone-chilling, as if it could swallow all light. It was the coldest yin, the purest yin and the coldest. At the same time, it nurtured the 3 power essences of pure yin, extreme cold, and darkness, all of which had reached an extremely profound realm. Shi Tianfang and the others immediately recognized that it was the black seawater of the yin and yang sea at the foot of the Jade Capital Mountain. In the tide, a giant black fish was riding the waves, bobbing up and down in the sea. It was even bigger than an ordinary whale, and it looked a bit like the Kuan Peng when it transformed into the Kuan form. When it emerged from the water, it looked like an island. On the head of the black fish, a purple-clothed girl was sitting cross-legged. On her knees was a long black sword that looked like ice crystals. She had a beautiful appearance and her long hair fluttered in the sea, making her look like a fairy of the sea. The girl looked calm, but her eyes were unusually quick-witted as she focused on the front. In the air above her, a strange pill floated. It was completely black, as transparent and resplendent as ice crystals, and emitted rolling purple light. Impressively, there was also a shadow of an azure dragon circling around it, which turned into an illusory shadow of a baby girl. When the baby girl opened and closed her eyes, a quiet black light flashed. It was Luo Qinggu, the youngest disciple of the Profound Gates master, Lin Feng. The giant black fish was naturally Wu Tong. He was tumbling in the yin and yang sea, causing the black tide to surge, which turned into a tsunami and pressed down on Shi Tianfang and the others. At the same time, Luo Qinggu pinched a sword art with her left hand and lightly pointed at the top of Wu Tong's head, letting Wu Tong receive her sword intent. Then, she held the profound Che sword on her knees with her right hand, and pulled the tip of the sword. All of a sudden, the raging black waves condensed into countless huge black ice swords. The tips of these swords were as big as small mountain peaks, emitting a piercingly cold sword qi, thrusting towards Shi Tianfang, Xiao Dongtian and the others. That black fish is a demon at the first level of the immortal demon soul realm? There's something strange about this black sea. He and that little girl can actually launch such a powerful attack together? Zhang Enrui, the sect master of the human realm, drank the wine in his cup in one gulp, and then threw his own cup at the thousands of black ice swords in front of him. The small mouth of the cup suddenly turned into a bottomless pit that could contain everything. It distorted the space and swallowed a large number of black ice swords that were as big as mountains. Zhang Enrui's hands didn't stop. He raised the wine cups in the leather pouch at his waist one after another. Just like the first cup, He swallowed the black ice swords. Although the yin and yang life and death formation was constantly changing and mysterious, Shi Tianfang, the 6 paths of reincarnation, Xiao Dong Tian, the Black Heaven Seal, and the other experts still kept moving forward. They didn't care about Wu Tong and Luo Qinggu, letting Zhang and Rui deal with them. Their target was very clear: Jade Capital Mountain and the White Jade Pillar. However, right at this moment, a terrifying sword intent suddenly appeared. Even Shi Tianfang and the other experts of the Dao fusing level felt their hearts palpitate, and a feeling of impending disaster arose in their hearts. In the next moment, the 10,000 Zhonglong, clear light was already right in front of them. Chapter 845. The endless clear light seemed to want to destroy the world. It swept over, leaving a mark in the void. The light danced in the air as if the world had been cut open. Blood flowed out of the wound and splashed everywhere. Facing such a brutal sword light, Shi Tianfang, 6 paths of reincarnation, Xiao Dongtian, and the Black Heaven Seal had to retreat. However, Li Yuanfeng put his palms together and activated the yin and yang life and death formation, turning the void upside down. The enormous twisting force caused the 4 of them to pause. Although they broke free in an instant, the speed of the vicious sword light skyrocketed. In an instant, it grew longer and landed on the mysterious Heaven Seal, almost cutting off a corner of it. The mysterious Heaven Seal's origin spirit fused with the body of the magic treasure. It was as vast as the heavens, and a suppressive power erupted in all directions, forcefully blocking this sword strike. However, the terrifying sword light that split the heavens and split the earth still left a deep scar on the mysterious Heaven Seal. What a brutal sword! A muffled groan came from the Black Heaven Seal as it fell back. From the yin and yang life and death formation, a girl with half black and half white hair walked out slowly with the heaven-crushing sword in her hand. She stared at Shi Tianfang and the others expressionlessly. It was Lin Feng's sword attendant, Xianli. The Black Heaven Seal's original spirit appeared again, and turned into a black-robed man. He stared at Xianli and said, "Even the heavens are not as good as you. Before the 9 heavens are formed, I'm afraid only the immortal heaven sword of Shu Mountain can defeat you." It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned the immortal heaven sword. Once he did, Xianli's emotionless eyes suddenly became cold and her aura became even more ferocious. Shi Tianfang and Xiao Dongtian frowned. Why didn't the master of the Celestial Gate take this sword with her? Wait. I see. Shu Mountain's main target is her. The 2 stared at Xianli and shook their heads subconsciously. This sword was too brutal and dangerous. It was almost impossible to refine and subdue it. At most, they could only destroy it. But even if they could do it, it was not worth it to fight such a brutal sword to the death. Perhaps in the world, only the Shu Mountain sword sect would covet this sword, and they were the only ones who could use it to their advantage. Shi Tianfang and Xiao Dongtian didn't want to fight Xianli, but it wasn't up to them. The heaven-punishing sword in Xianli's hand suddenly emitted a bright light. This time, her target was Shi Tianfang. Shi Tianfang did not dare to be negligent. He clasped his palms together, and a huge shadow of light appeared above his head. Its head reached the sky, and its feet stepped on the ground. It looked otherworldly, noble and proud, as if it was an immortal overlooking all living beings. The master of the heavenly law, Sakra Heaven. After Sakra's silhouette appeared, Shi Tianfang pushed both of his palms forward, and the silhouette of Sakra above his head also did the same action. An endless tide of light rushed toward Xianli, but it was no match for Xianli's sword, which directly annihilated the tide of light. Wherever the mournful clear light passed, Shi Tianfang's visualization of Sakra Heaven's light image was directly cut into 2 pieces at the waist. Shi Tianfang's expression remained unchanged. The light and shadow condensed once again, but this time, it was no longer the image of Sakra Heaven. Instead, it was a lofty god who seemed to be the creator of all living things. Brahma Avatar. Brahman and I are one. As Shi Tianfang chanted, the Brahma Avatar descended and merged with him, causing his aura to skyrocket, making him look like a god of creation. Slowly he raised his right hand and pointed his finger at Xianli. The secret skill of the reincarnation sect, the Great Brahma Finger. With a single finger, all living things were born. The stone nodded, and the heaven and earth opened and closed. But after the creation came the destruction, the end of all living things. At the same time, the 6 paths will also appeared on the other side. As it rotated, the face in the center of the wheel opened its mouth and spat out a small red lotus. This red lotus was formed by extremely pure and deep red flames. Slowly, each petal of the lotus emitted a clear radiance, presenting an illusory yet enchanting beauty that made people want to immerse their souls in it. It was the karmic fire of the red lotus. The karmic fire of the red lotus that was activated by the 6 paths wheel was even more mysterious and terrifying than the ordinary fire. It was a combination of the power of the 6 paths wheel and the karmic fire of the red lotus. It was extraordinarily domineering. Not only could it wear down the enemy's arcane energy, but it could also damage the enemy's soul and soul. Moreover, it could also trigger the strange karmic fire, causing the victim's soul to crumble and fall into the cycle of reincarnation. It was fine if the fire didn't touch the body, but once it did, even a Tao integration realm expert would have a headache. This sword's will of annihilation is even stronger than the Azura battle saber. The Azura battle saber only kills, but this sword wants to destroy the world. The face in the center of the 6 paths will stared at Xian Li and said, "But this way, it will be even more difficult for you to escape from my karmic fire of the red lotus." Xian Li was expressionless. She raised the heaven-crushing sword in her hand and pointed it at the top of her head. In the next moment, the sword slashed down. The clear light gathered in a single line, and when the light line slashed down, the void was split apart. Even the yin and yang life and death array formation trembled a little. It was like a painting that was suddenly cut in half. Then, the two halves intertwined, and a gap appeared in the painting. The karmic fire of the 6 paths wheel was directly cut in half. Then the dreamy red lotus of the karmic fire of the 6 paths wheel instantly dimmed, as if a living being had been killed. The flame gradually extinguished, and finally it disappeared. The clear light line of Xian Li's sword drew a mysterious arc in the air, and completed a beautiful turn. At last, the tip of the sword touched the tip of Shi Tianfang's great Brahma finger. Shi Tianfang's expression changed slightly. He retracted his finger and retreated, but the finger had already exploded. Countless rays of light swirled around it, and it looked like blood splattered everywhere. It was the finger that had been injured by Xian Li's sword. The Xian Li sword continued forward. Shi Tianfang's expression was extremely solemn. Arcane energy gushed out from his body and turned into 6 rays of light. Then, they condensed into a wheel that looked exactly like the 6 paths wheel above his head. It was just an illusory wheel of light. The wheel was also divided into 6 grids, and it rotated continuously, showing the 6 paths of reincarnation. Among them, the white grid that represented the celestial path, the green grid that represented the hungry ghost path, the purple grid that represented the animal path, and the colorful grid that represented the human path had very clear light and shadow engravings on these 4 grids. As for the blood red grid that represented the Azura path and the black grid that represented the hell path, the engravings that appeared on them were relatively blurry. The celestial path of reincarnation of the reincarnation sect cultivated the supreme secret art of the reincarnation Taoist, the 6 paths of reincarnation book, and it was the only branch of the 6 paths of reincarnation that could cultivate the 6 paths of reincarnation Tao fruit. However, the 6 paths of reincarnation Tao differed from person to person, and the Tao fruit that could be cultivated was mostly biased. Throughout the ages, only the founder of the sect, the reincarnation Taoist, was able to cultivate the 6 paths of reincarnation Tao fruit. Shi Tianfang's 6 paths of reincarnation Tao fruit will rotated, and time and space twisted together, trying to drag everything around it into the samsara. The 6 paths of reincarnation Tao wheel, a peak Mahayana realm magic treasure, rotated opposite to him, and also twisted time and space. One man and one treasure established a mysterious connection, and together, they enhanced each other's arcane energy. Together, they created a distorted world that even affected the surrounding people, who could not stand steadily and were almost dragged into it. The 6 paths of reincarnation revolved at the same time, and the powerful twisting force caused Xian Li's sword light to tremble slightly. Xian Li's eyes gradually turned blood red, and the tip of the heaven-punishing sword also flashed with a fierce blood-red light. Then, a clear light surged out, and at the end of the clear light, the blood-red light became more and more dazzling, while the clear light gradually faded away. In the end, there was only a fierce blood-red sword light with a monstrous murderous aura. Shi Tianfang and the human face in the middle of the 6 wheels wore a gloomy expression. Neither of them said a word, but they circulated their energy to the extreme. The 2 6 paths of reincarnation resonated with each other, and turned into a huge black hole, twisting and distorting the yin and yang life and death array. With this great force, Shi Tianfang and the 6 paths of reincarnation finally stopped the fierce heaven-punishing sword light, but the blood-red sword light was still moving forward slowly. So strong! The human face in the center of the 6 paths of reincarnation said, "Below the creation level, this sword's offensive power can be said to be the strongest. Perhaps only those semi-finished creation level treasures that are just one step away from the creation level can barely compete with it." As Xianli fought against Shi Tianfang and the 6 paths of reincarnation, Xianmen Tianzong and the others also entered the battlefield and fought against the invading enemies. Wu Tong and Luo Qinggu controlled the Yin-Yang Si to fight against the reincarnation sect's human pathmaster. Zhang and Rui, Xiao Zhener's uncle, Gu Peng, fought against the reincarnation sect's hungry ghost pathmaster, Taoist heavenly ghost. Buddhist monk Dade fought against a human path's returning void-level expert. And the 2 poles Sky Peak also gave up on resting, and fought against Dao Venerate Dong Ming. Xiao Yin also entered the yin and yang life and death array, and he unleashed his Yuanshan incarnation, turning it into a fiery Tai Chi diagram to fight against Xiao Dongtian and the Xiantian seal. Xiao Zhener, Jieyu, and the others also entered the array, and with the power of the array, they fought against some of the Yuanshan incarnations in the enemy's camp. Li Yuanfang controlled the yin and yang life and death array to support the others. He did not have the ability to trap so many Dao-fusing experts and Mahayana-level artifacts, but when they were attacked by Xiao Yan, Xianli and the others, the array would suddenly activate, and they would be at a disadvantage. At the same time, he controlled the yin and yang life and death array to restrain the terrifying Azura saber. Fighting in the yin and yang life and death array, Xiao Yan, Xianli, and the others had the home ground advantage. Under such circumstances, Xiao Yan could barely fight against 2 enemies, and at the same time, restrain Xiao Dongtian and the slightly damaged Xiantian seal. On his side, he was on the defensive, trying to stall for time. On the other side, Xianmen Tianzong attacked fiercely. Zhang and Rui, the human path's leader, was facing the yin and yang si controlled by Wu Tong and Luo Qinggu, and was constantly being disturbed by the yin and yang life and death array. Xiao Zhen's magical power was outstanding, and she had many artifacts in her hands, causing her Yuanshan opponent to be in a difficult situation. With the help of Jieyu White Light, North Sea Whale King, and the others, they also managed to stabilize their position. Other than Xiao Dongtian and Xiantian Seal, who had the upper hand, Xianmen Tianzong had a slight advantage in the other battles. With the help of the array, Xianli was fighting against 2 enemies, and the more she fought, the more advantageous she became. Shi Tianfang looked around and frowned. This array is troublesome. With a thought, the Azura Saber's primordial spirit battle Azura roared and held the Azura Saber with both hands. With a slash, the crazy power annihilated the boundless life force, turning it into a bloody death aura. Its power returned to its peak, and the battle Azura's blood-red eyes flashed coldly. Death Aura Stone? Annihilating Death Aura? So one of the treasures of this array is the Death Aura Stone produced by the Azura realm. Since that's the case, how are you going to trap me? The battle Azura roared into the sky, and the violent killing intent and death aura filled the entire yin and yang life and death array. Li Yuanfang, who was driving the array, immediately felt something wrong. The Death Aura Stone in the array was moving, and it shook violently, wanting to leave the yin and yang life and death array and go into the arms of the battle Azura. Chapter 846. Sensing the changes in the yin and yang life and death array, Li Yuanfang's expression was calm. As expected, the worst-case scenario. In theory, if Battle Azura snatched away the Death Chi stone, it would at most prevent the yin and yang life and death array from working. The 6 transformations of life and death array would be reduced to 5 transformations. Its power would be greatly weakened, but it would still be of great use. But in fact, at this moment, except for the Shura Saber, all the enemies in the formation were fighting against the yin and yang life and death formation. The yin and yang life and death formation suppressed them, but the 2 sides also fell into a strange balance. Once the yin and yang life and death array changed, and its power suddenly weakened, it could collapse like an ant's nest. After all, there were 3 Dao integration powerhouses, 3 Mahayana-grade treasures, 3 return to void stage powerhouses, and several nascent soul incarnation stage powerhouses trapped in the formation. Li Yuanfang took a deep breath. Both of his hands kept changing the incantation gestures, manipulating the yin and yang life and death formation to launch the life and death transformation to the extreme. Many other transformations took turns, supplying all the power to the life and death transformation, firmly suppressing the Death Chi stone and preventing it from moving. At the same time, this also completely suppressed the Azura Saber in the yin and yang life and death array, causing the 2 sides to fall into a stalemate. But this way, the array's suppression on Shi Tianfang and the others weakened, and they could only barely maintain it. Zhang and Rui and the others began to gradually turn the tables. Only Xianli against Shi Tianfang and 6 Paths of Reincarnation, and Gu Peng against Taoist Sky Ghost still had the upper hand. Among the remaining people, the Polar Sky Peak and Zen Master Dade were seriously injured. They could only maintain a stalemate against opponents who were originally weaker than them. Xiaozhen was besieged by 2 first-tier primordial soul cultivators. But the one who is in the most danger out of everyone is still Xiao Yan. Earlier he had a bloody battle with Jie Luoshi, and his injuries have not healed. Now he has to face the encirclement of Xiao Dongtian and the mysterious Sky Seal alone. His situation is already very dangerous. If not for Xiao Dongtian and Xian Tian in worrying about him risking his life and wanting to take him down at the lowest cost, his situation would be even more dangerous. The fact that Xiao Yan had suddenly stepped into the nascent divinity realm and displayed a formidable fighting prowess had truly exceeded the expectations of Shi Tianfang, Xiao Dongtian, and the others. Xiao Dongtian and the others couldn't help but be wary of Zhu Yi, who hadn't shown up yet. In addition, Xianli wasn't completely ignoring the overall situation. She would help from time to time, which allowed Xiao Yan to barely hold on. However, if the situation continued like this, he would definitely be killed by Xiao Dongtian and the Xian Tian Yin before Xianli could completely destroy Shi Tianfang and the 6 Paths Wheel. On Yujing Mountain, Li Yuanfang's expression was as calm as ever, but his forehead was slightly sweaty. He looked up at the top of the mysterious heaven treasure tree, in the direction of the mysterious heaven timeless cave. I can't get in touch with Tianhao. If third senior brother and the others don't return in time, I'm afraid second senior brother's efforts will be in vain. A great battle unfolded on Mount Yujing. At this moment, in the Spirit Sea, at the border between the Spirit Sea world and the Sea of Light, a huge ball of light existed on the boundary between the two, flashing with a faint light. The light was constantly changing, sometimes black, sometimes white. Lin Feng's original body and Brontosaurus's doppelganger were standing opposite each other in the ball of light. They were studying the Tao together and deducing the 3rd chapter of the Tao Te Ching, the Yin and Yang chapter. Silently, his god of war doppelganger sat cross-legged outside the ball of light like Tao Master Liubois. Silently, he sensed the mysteries of the great Tao in the Spirit Sea. The god of war doppelganger suddenly opened his eyes and looked into the distance of the illusory world of the Spirit Sea. The seemingly endless tide of the Spirit Sea once again surged toward the Sea of Light. This time, the tide was much more turbulent than before. In the vast tide of spiritual qi, one could see invisible light ribbons condensed from the great Tao laws. It was as if the great Tao was pressing down on the Sea of Light. Before the tide reached them, Lin Feng's god of war doppelganger's heart skipped a beat. With a wave of his hand, the stone ladder and the stone flute fell into the air. The stone flute and the stone ladder had completely lost their luster, and looked like 2 ordinary stone sculptures. The concept of power and spiritual energy within dissipated the instant the great tide erupted. It must have been caused by the actions of the Taishu temple's side. Lin Feng frowned slightly. Compared to before, the tide is much stronger. As expected, there are really capable people in Taishu temple. They turn disaster into opportunity. They actually want to take advantage of the opportunity to repair the gap in the spirit sea left by Yuhuang Heavenly Sea to further enhance their understanding and control of the spirit sea. If they succeed in repairing the gap, will they be able to completely control the spirit sea? This is really the worst-case scenario that we all expected. The tide still came for the Sea of Light, and did not affect Lin Feng and Dao Master Liobor at all. Lin Feng looked at the invisible light ribbons crisscrossing in the tide of spiritual qi and gradually narrowed his eyes. No matter how hard I try, I can only be the second best. The best result is always being the second best. This is not what I want to see. At this moment, in another area of the vast spirit sea world, in a place that seemed to be very close to Lin Feng and the ocean of light, yet also seemed to be very far away, several people were also sitting cross-legged, forming two circles at the same time. In the middle circle, there were only two people sitting. One had a kind face with his eyes closed, and the other had snow-white hair and a dignified expression. They were Tai Dao Master and Shoichi Dashin. They sat face to face, and between them, a talisman floated in the air. Countless invisible light ribbons extended from the talisman, as if connecting the entire spirit sea. Next to Tai Dao Master and Shoichi Dashin, Yun Yuanjin stood beside them. He flicked his hands and Dharma power flew out one after another, turning into waves of light that revolved around Tai Dao Master, Shoichi Dashin, and the talisman. In the outer circle, Xianlin Taoist, Kai Fengzhou, Yu Yuan Dao Master, and Lin Daohan sat cross-legged in four directions. At this moment, a talisman floated above each of their heads. An endless brilliance emerged from the talisman. Behind the four of them, these streams of light projected four balls of light and shadow illusions. At this moment, a man and a woman stood in the large light and shadow illusion behind Yu Yuan Dao Master. The man had an extremely handsome appearance, a tranquil expression and a lofty bearing. He was like the moon that hung alone in the horizon, chilly and lonely, and the pattern between his brows that was like a full moon was ceaselessly changing, and it displayed the changes of the moon's brilliance. The woman's eyebrows were picturesque, and her facial features were ethereal and beautiful. She held a round mirror in her arms as she followed behind the man. It was the light and shadow image of Yuehua Tian and Li Jingyuan. And in the light and shadow illusion behind Lin Daohan, there was a man in ancient clothes with a calm expression. It was as if he had a card up his sleeve, and everything was under his control. This man's eyebrows were 40 to 50% similar to the current temple master of Taishu Temple, Yin Nan Lai. He was the second temple master in the history of Taishu Temple, Yin Xinghe, one of the four heroes of ancient Taishu, and the ancestor of Yin Nan Lai. In the light and shadow illusion behind Xianlin Taoist, the image of a middle-aged man also appeared. His aura was powerful and majestic, and he seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life, but he was also unusually intelligent. The most eye-catching part of this middle-aged man was his eyes. They were a pair of double pupils. His eyes were like the sun and the moon, looking at the vicissitudes of life. Countless rays of divine light shot out from them, displaying the incomparably gorgeous scene between heaven and earth. One of the four heroes of ancient Taishu, Huang Chun, had been studying under Taishu Taoists since the primeval age. In the Great War at the end of the primeval age, he had killed the leaders of the Fire Dragon, Jade Dragon, and White Jade Dragon clans of the primeval Heavenly Dragon clan, as well as the leader of the Yingzhao clan, Primeval Yingzhao. He had made great contributions to the rise of the human clan, and he was also one of the creators of the legend of double pupils. But among the four light and shadow illusions, the most eye-catching one was the ball of light behind Kai Fengzhou, which was larger than the other three light and shadow illusions. This was not because Kai Fengzhou was more powerful, but because the talisman he had activated was more powerful. In that light and shadow illusion, a tall young man stood. His hair was disheveled, and he looked very messy. Unlike Yu Huaishan, Yin Xinghe, and Huang Chun, who were all dressed in the traditional white robes of Taishu Temple with patterns of white clouds embroidered on their lapels. This young man was dressed in a brown linen robe, and he looked very shabby. But such a man exuded an aura that was even stronger than that of Yu Huaxian, and the other two. An unruly and domineering smile appeared on his face, and his temperament was completely different from that of the other three. He seemed very arrogant, as if he did not care about anything in the world, and he was lawless. And this person was the head of the 4 heroes of the Great Void in ancient times, the strongest cultivator after the founder of Taishu Temple, the Taishu Taoist. His name was Wen Qiang. It was said that Wen Qiang's magical powers were so strong that they were on par with his master. When the emperor was still on the throne, Wen Qiang went to the desolate ancient sea of stars and gambled with him. Both rounds were draws, and the emperor abdicated, and he became a Buddha on the spot. After he founded the Tempest Temple, Wen Qiang went to the Tempest Temple again, and had another 2 gambles, and the result was 1 loss and 1 win. After the Taishu Taoist and the Buddha went to the Dead Sea together, Wen Qiang was recognized as the strongest cultivator of the human clan at that time, and he was even stronger than the human emperor of the same era. In a war between the 2 realms, this super fierce person had once single-handedly injured the Saint Emperor of the demon clan at that time. At this moment, Xianlin Taoist, Kai Fengzhou, Lord Yu Yuan, and Lin Daohan were sitting cross-legged in silence. The light and shadow behind them projected a majestic radiance, which landed on the talisman between Lord Tai and Shoichi Daishin. Lord Yu Yuan said coldly, Tianhai Yudu probably did not expect that the seeds of disaster he planted in the past would instead help our Taishu Temple have the opportunity to completely control the Spirit Sea. Different from the Ying Sea, the Mysterious Sea, the Netherworld Sea, and the other seas, the Spirit Sea is mysterious and unfathomable. It is interdependent with the vast 1,000 worlds, and is everywhere. After we completely control the Spirit Sea, as long as we can determine the target's specific location, we can use the power of the Spirit Sea to suppress any place in the vast 1,000 worlds at any time. Yin Yuanjin, who was standing, smiled. If others obtain the Spirit Sea, they won't be able to determine the target's location, and they will even avoid it. However, our Taishu Temple has the Haotian Mirror. Unless we hide in the turbulence of the void, we will be found by the Haotian Mirror. At that time, the Haotian Mirror and the Spirit Sea will act together. Even if Tianhai Yudu revives, he will be suppressed to death. Chapter 847. Kai Fengzhou sat under the illusion created by Wen Qiang's light and shadow. His hand changed signs, and he sent his magic power into the talisman above his head. Silently he said, "The master of the Daoist sect should also be sealed here. We need to guard against him interfering." Xianlin Taoist shook his head. "He can't find us here. If he really is related to the Yudu beast, then he might be able to find the place where the Yudu of the heavenly seas caused the destruction. There, even if he knows what happened, he won't be able to stop it." Lord Tai closed his eyes, his expression gentle. The rise of such a strong practitioner is the blessing of the human race. There is no need to make things difficult for him. After we are done here, we can just shake him out of the Spirit Sea. Opposite him, Shoichi Daishin said indifferently, "But it is not the blessing of our Taishu Temple. His Yujing Mountain can freely hide in the turbulence of the void. Like the king of the underworld's realm of the underworld, it is a rare place that does not fear the search of the Haotian Mirror. Unlike the king of the underworld's realm, which is fixed, his Yujing Mountain can move freely." Slowly, Xianlin Taoist said, "Then after we completely control the Spirit Sea, we can keep him there for a while. Our temple doesn't want anything else. First, we will take his Yujing Mountain, and then we will send him out." Shoichi Daishin shook his head. "Never mind, let him be. As long as we can completely control the Spirit Sea, it will be fine if he doesn't cause trouble. Even if he does, he won't be able to overturn the heavens. He can only keep hiding in the void. Once he shows himself in the boundless world, he will quickly be found by the Haotian Mirror. The problem with the demon race has been solved. We can free up our hands and gather 12 people. With the help of the Haotian Mirror and the Void Yin Yang Bell, we can work together to search the void. Although it will take time and effort, we will eventually find him. Xianlin Dao Master nodded and didn't say anything more. He simply said, "Disciple has observed him. He is not a person who is content with a plain life. His heart of a tiger and wolf surpasses Liang Pan, Xian Longsheng, Shi Yu and the others." While Dao Master Jingyi and Dao Master Xianlin were talking, Taiwan Dao Master's expression did not change. Yun Yuanjin, Kai Fengzhou, Dao Master Yu Yuan, and Lin Daohan also did not change their expressions. They just listened quietly. When Shoichi Daishin and Xianlin Taoist finished their conversation, Lord Tai said, "The first priority is to resolve the threat of the demon race. If we can completely control the spirit sea and wait for the Haotian mirror to recover, the human will have a huge advantage over the demon race." Even though the master of Xian Gate won't be able to find us, if he really goes to the place where Heavenly Sea Yuda destroyed back then, it's hard to predict what will happen. After all, we're still a distance away from completely controlling the spirit sea. If something suddenly happens there, I'm afraid we won't be able to react in time. Our speed needs to be faster. When Dao Master Righteous One and the others heard this, they all nodded and immediately activated their spiritual power. The light on the core talisman became more and more dazzling, and the invisible light ribbons connected to the spiritual sea world also became more and more bright. Yin Yuanjin flicked out several magic power and circled around the core talisman. He looked at Xianlin Taoist and said, "Senior brother Xianlin, if we talk about restlessness, you don't seem to be worse than the master of Xian Gate." Shoichi Daishin was beside him, but Yin Yuanjin didn't have any taboo. He talked and laughed, and Shoichi Daishin didn't mind. Xianlin Taoist said silently, "The goal is the same. Everyone has to fight for it. Naturally, they have to plot against each other." He looked at Yin Yuanjin and said, "Junior sister Yin, aren't you guys the same?" His words vaguely included Dao Master Qingyi, but Xianlin Taoist's tone was calm. Yin Yuanjin didn't care either and just smiled. At this moment, Lin Feng, who was far away at the border between the world of the spirit sea and the sea of light, watched the vast spiritual qi tide sweep and fill the sea of light under the influence of the invisible light bands condensed by thousands of great Daos. The sea of light silently devoured the second spiritual qi tide, allowing it to flow into itself. But this time it was different. The countless invisible light bands in the spiritual qi tide also filled the sea of light. This time, the sea of light was being filled at a speed visible to the naked eye. Lin Feng and the Brontosaurus clone didn't move, while the God of War clone came to the edge of the sea of light and looked at what was happening in front of him expressionlessly. To him, this was definitely not something to be happy about. Among the 7 seas of heavenly origin, the Spirit Sea and the Dead Sea were the most mysterious, but also the most special. Unlike the Nether Sea, the Sea of Wonders, the Profound Sea, and the Star Sea, they seem to be everywhere and closely connected to the Great Thousand Worlds. Those who controlled Yingzhou, Penglai, and Fangzhong Mountains could completely control the Ying Ocean and turn it into their backyard. Anyone who dared to enter would be suppressed by the entire Ying Ocean. However, that was only possible in the Ying Ocean, unlike the spiritual ocean, which could be attacked at any point in the colossal world as long as the target was determined. Even if Lin Feng obtained all 3 mountains and completely controlled the Ying Ocean, or the dragon race that completely controlled the mysterious ocean, they would still be in danger. The power of the spiritual ocean was above the Ying Ocean and mysterious ocean. If they really locked onto a target, they could forcefully tear apart the power restriction of the Ying Ocean and mysterious ocean and suppress them. The situation was similar to the Dead Ocean and Empty Ocean. The Dead Ocean was more mysterious than the spiritual ocean, but it could not be mentioned first. The Empty Ocean was the void battlefield. Due to the chaotic laws of the void, it was basically impossible for anyone to completely control it. Under such circumstances, the spiritual ocean could definitely be considered a strategic killing weapon, especially in the hands of the Taishu temple that possessed the Haotian mirror. The threat would increase exponentially. Lin Feng had limited knowledge of the specific functions of the Haotian mirror. However, from the fact that it had monitored Tianhuang mainland for countless years and many great demons were wary of it, It was very likely that the Haotian mirror had a certain degree of spatial detection and locking ability. Many great demons with high cultivation levels in Tianhuang mainland were in a dormant state and did not show themselves easily most of the time. This was more or less because of this consideration. People like the Enchantress and the Golden Rock Sage were the minority after all. On one hand, they had some hidden means, and on the other hand they were bold. If I'm not wrong, the Haotian mirror's guidance and the spiritual ocean's attack are a perfect match. This is not including the Haotian mirror's own attack. Lin Feng shook his head. When that time comes, no one in the entire divine land would dare to provoke the Taishu temple. Even I can only control the Yujing mountain and hide in the void. Otherwise, as long as I show my face in the vast thousand domains, I will be targeted if I'm not careful. Once I'm targeted, the attack will arrive instantly. It will be faster than anyone else, because the attack will come from right beside me. Unless I hide in the void turbulence and cultivate all the way until I'm not afraid of the spiritual ocean and the Haotian mirror. Well, to be precise, I have to add in the many experts of the Taishu temple. But let's not talk about how to cultivate to that stage. There might not be enough time. Not to mention that we are both cultivating. Everyone is improving. Lin Feng sighed and closed his eyes slightly. When he opened them again, they shone brightly as he stared at the sea of light in front of him. This situation is intolerable. But what should I do? At this moment, the invisible ribbons of light that seemed to be broken and twisted in the sea of light were being repaired. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Suddenly, he discovered that an illusion had appeared in the sea of light again. It was misty and seemed to be a void passage leading to the outside world, but it was blocked by some mysterious power. Lin Feng looked carefully, and his pupils involuntarily shrank. In the illusion, thick black fog filled the air, as if there was only darkness in the world. But in the depths of the darkness, he could vaguely see a large amount of silver-white light and intermittent purple light flashing. The profound and domineering power concept in it gave Lin Feng a vague sense of familiarity. He focused his eyes and looked carefully. In the depths of the black fog, there was an incomparably huge city. That city was completely black, but it flickered with silver light. The strong contrast was extremely dazzling. This city was layered on top of one another, and it was boundlessly vast. It was as if an incomparably huge mountain range had been hollowed out from the middle to build such a city. Majestic silver-white light rushed into the sky from the city, breaking through the black fog and into the void. There were many figures of the demon race walking in the city. They all had triangular heads and human-like faces, but their backs were covered with long silver-white hair. A huge tail dragged behind them, and the surface of their skin was covered in purple runes. The demons in the city were all Yudu beasts like Yuhuang Celestial Sea and Grand Immortal Realm. This was where the Yudu race lived. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. Ever since the war between the two worlds 4,000 years ago, when Yuhuang Celestial Sea fell and the demon race retreated, the Yudu race had mysteriously disappeared. All of their clansmen had secretly vanished from the boundless worlds. From then on, no one could find the whereabouts of the Yudu race. Even the entire heavenly Dao demon scriptures were lost. For thousands of years, countless people and demons had tried to find the whereabouts of the Yudu race. Under the situation where Taishu Temple couldn't spare any manpower to search, no one had found the whereabouts of the missing Yudu race. Grand Immortal Realm was the first Yudu beast to reappear in the boundless worlds in the past 4,000 years. Of course, to be more precise, it was a Yudu beast without a corporeal body. From the looks of it now, the Yudu race hadn't been wiped out. Instead, they had gone into hiding. Lin Feng observed carefully and realized that there were many Yudu beasts in the city. Some of them had lower cultivation, but there were also many extremely terrifying great demons. However, all of the nether capital beasts had a common characteristic, and that was the 3 horns on their heads were covered with a small white halo. Everyone had 3, without exception. Sensing carefully, one would realize that the concept contained in the white halos was actually somewhat similar to the aura of the spirit sea world. But now, Lin Feng could clearly see that the white halos on the long horns of the Yudu beasts were gradually dissipating. The Yudu beasts clearly noticed this as well. After a short moment of confusion, They all let out roars of delight. In an instant, demon chi rushed into the sky in the city, and the roars shook the sky, causing the entire world of the black fog to tremble. Chapter 848. Looking at this scene, how could Lin Feng not understand what had happened back then? Yu Huang's celestial sea had swallowed a corner of the spirit sea, and because of the wonders of the spirit sea and the strangeness of the Yudu race's bloodline, other Yudu beasts had benefited from it. However, there was no free lunch in the world. The Yudu race had benefited from the spirit sea, but they also faced danger, which was being targeted by the spirit sea. The white halos on the horns on their heads were the restraints of the spirit sea's great Tao. If they hadn't been hiding in this strange dimensional world, they could have been suppressed and attacked by the spirit sea at any time. Back then, Yu Huang's celestial sea's divine arts and magic power had reached the heavens, and he had used all kinds of methods to conceal the hostility of the spirit sea. However, after his death, no one in the Yudu race had such divine arts and cultivation, so the Yudu race was exposed to the eyes of the spirit sea again. Without the spirit sea's consciousness, the suppression power wouldn't be too strong, but it wasn't something most Yudu people with lower cultivation could withstand. Those with higher cultivation had to face the suppression of the spirit sea while fighting other strong practitioners of the human race or the demon race. Fighting while shackled was undoubtedly a very dangerous thing. Looking at it now, maybe it was Yu Huang's will, or maybe it was the collective decision of the Yudu race, but after Yu Huang's death, the Yudu race retreated into this dimensional world that was covered in black fog, biding their time and waiting for a chance to rise again. Now the time had come. The Taishu Temple repaired the spirit sea again, clearing away the traces left by Yu Huang, and also removing the shackles on the Yudu race. The unparalleled demon race that had once ruled over Heaven Wasteland thousands of years ago was about to see the light of day again. Even if Yu Huang's celestial sea had fallen, the Yudu race that no longer had to worry about the spirit sea was still one of the strongest races in Heaven Wasteland. Over these years, the Yudu race hadn't wasted their time. There were auras of many strong practitioners in the city, and the power of the entire Yudu race was extremely impressive. However, they might not know what regaining their freedom meant, or what they would face in the future. Many thoughts flashed through Lin Feng's mind as he stared at the scene before him. Others might not know, but Yu Huang Tianhai definitely knows. After his death, his clansmen will be targeted by the spirit sea. If I want to dispel the suppression of the spirit sea, I have to repair the gap in the spirit sea. Did he expect that his actions would allow the Taishu Temple to gain full control of its spirit sea during the process of repairing it? At the very least, he knows that if someone manages to repair their spirit sea, even if they can't completely control it, they'll at least have a huge advantage. Lin Feng stared at the dimensional realm in front of him that was filled with black fog. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. So Yu Huang Heaven Sea will definitely leave behind some cards to fight for a chance for their people. Otherwise, we can only pin all our hopes on him never dying. If he doesn't die, he can help our clansmen hide from the suppression of the spiritual sea. But how can we be sure about this? Lin Feng's battle god clone looked at the light ball beside him, which was half in the world of the spirit sea and half in the sea of light. There, other than Lin Feng's main body and Brontosaurus's clone, the heavenly scarlet golden bead was also there. Yu Huang Tianhai bit off a corner of the spirit sea. With such a deep hatred, even if the spirit sea doesn't have its own consciousness, it'll probably remember him. If he dares to enter the spirit sea again, it'll immediately trigger the full suppression of the spirit sea. Even if he can withstand it, he won't be able to gain control of the spirit sea. Even if the crack in the spirit sea isn't repaired, it'll be the same for the other Yudu beasts wrapped in white halos. Lin Feng thought to himself. And this should be the backup plan he left behind. Using a secret art to help a race get rid of their physical body and demonic energy, and even their demonic soul is specially processed so that their spirit imprint and memories are no longer retained, thus freeing themselves from the restraints of the white halos formed by the power of the spirit sea. This secret art must have come with a hefty price. Even if all the resources are used up, it'll probably only be able to create a grand luo. Moreover, they'll need to reincarnate again and again to completely free themselves from the surveillance of the Spirit Sea. Even after the fall of Yuhuang Tianhai, it still hasn't been completed. If I came to this world 1 or 2,000 years earlier and picked up the heavenly scarlet golden bead and the Grand Luo, I'll probably have to wait for a few more reincarnations. Lin Feng's battle god clone walked into the light ball and arrived before the heavenly scarlet golden bead. Silently, he stared at the massive bead. Due to the scar left behind by Yuhuang Tianhai, the heavenly scarlet golden bead will not fuse with the spirit of the Grand Luo, barring some very rare and unpredictable circumstances. This sealed spirit sea can't be opened either. Only when the heavenly scarlet golden bead fuses with the spirit of the Grand Luo will there be hope of reopening this place, allowing the Grand Luo to enter. Now that I think about it, my previous speculation was a little off. The golden seal and the stone talisman were most likely left behind by Yuhuang Tianhai to aid him in heading to the Spirit Sea. Unfortunately, things are unpredictable, and Yuhuang Tianhai isn't flawless. Who would have thought that the golden seal and the stone talisman would be obtained by Tao Lord Liubo unintentionally? If I hadn't obtained the stone flute and the stone staircase from Taishu Temple, the Grand Luo and I would have been helpless before. Lin Feng frowned slightly. I feel like there's something wrong with this. A Grand Luo doesn't fear death. As long as he reincarnates one life after another. His spirit has been specially processed, so he doesn't fear being refined by others. At the same time, he will only awaken when he encounters the heavenly scarlet golden bead. But there's a key point here. The golden seal and the stone talisman were originally guarding the Grand Luo, and they were accidentally lost. Did Yuhuang Tianhai really not think of this? Did they not leave any safety measures behind? Let's not talk about this first. How could they guarantee that the heavenly scarlet golden bead would fall into the hands of a Grand Luo, and at the same time, that Grand Luo wouldn't be controlled by others, such as me? Lin Feng's expression was calm, but his eyes flickered slightly. Tianhai must have left other safety measures behind, but it seems like there's something wrong with these safety measures due to Tianhai's death. Silently, the Grand Luo was currently studying the essence of the Taoist techniques of the demon race left behind by Yuhuang Tianhai. Lin Feng did not disturb him, and tapped the heavenly scarlet golden bead with his finger. After carefully analyzing for a moment, Lin Feng also carefully examined the raging spirit sea tide outside. After a while, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, as bright and warm as the sun. Lin Feng's hands changed hand seals, and he tapped the heavenly scarlet golden bead with his finger again. A purple radiance surged out of the bead, leaving the light sphere and entering the sea of light, directly penetrating the illusion. Then, under the guidance of the purple radiance, the spirit sea tides of the great Tao of spirit chi that were continuously filling up the sea of light transformed into surging white light. It seemed to pass through the boundary and surge towards the dimensional world. Even though Lin Feng and the rest were sealed in the spirit sea, he could borrow the gap created by the celestial sea and the demon power of Yudu race that came from the same source to guide the spirit power of the spirit sea to that dimensional world. When the surging white light landed in the dimensional world, it did not show its form, nor did it need to pass through the thick black fog. It directly acted on the 3 long horns on the heads of the Yudu beasts. In an instant, the white halo on the horns of all the Yudu people that was gradually fading became dazzling once more. At the start, when they saw the white halo becoming brighter again, the Yudu people didn't panic. Some of the great demons even revealed expressions of anticipation, but soon, they realized that something was wrong. The heaven-shaking roars suddenly quietened down, and there was a moment when the Yudu imperial city fell into a deathly silence. The next moment, even more berserk roars resounded through the clouds and shook the black fog outside the Yudu imperial city. The great demons of Yudu were furious, and the entire dimensional world seemed like it was about to be destroyed. Lin Feng saw the situation and smiled slightly. He tapped the heavenly scarlet golden bead again, and another beam of purple light landed in the sea of light. As it spiraled, it was guided into the dimensional world through the power of the spirit sea. The Yudu people felt the purple light, and after a moment of silence, a huge amount of demon chi rushed into the sky. A few of the strongest Yudu beasts flew into the sky above the imperial city and stood upright in the sky. Purple light markings surged all over their bodies. That profound yet violent demon power made even Lin Feng frown slightly. Looking at so many great Yudu demons with outstanding abilities, his eyelids twitched. Back then, during the war between the two worlds, along with the Yuhuang Celestial Sea, the Yudu race lost quite a number of experts. Now that they still have such robust abilities, it's no wonder they could stir up such a huge wave back then. However, the stronger you guys are, the smoother the execution of my plan will be. Lin Feng chuckled and looked at the berserk power of the Yudu beasts pouring into the white ring of light on the horn on his head. He saw that many purple stripes had appeared on the white ring of light, and they were still spreading. In the sea of light in front of Lin Feng's eyes, some purple light that looked like faint clouds started to appear. It infected the sea of light, but it didn't stop the spirit sea from mending the gap. Instead, it stirred up the great Tao in the spirit sea, trying to seize control of the spirit sea. The heavenly scarlet golden bead in front of Lin Feng trembled continuously and gave off beams of purple light. They fused into the sea of light and the tide of the spirit sea at the same time as though they were hubs. If Taishu Temple hadn't started mending the spirit sea, the Yudu people wouldn't have been able to break free from the white halos on their horns, and could only endure it obediently. Now they can take the chance to seize control of the spirit sea through the power of the spirit sea. Now that I look at it, this is the true arrangement of Yuhuang Celestial Sea, right? However, in his plan, Grand Luo would mend the spirit sea and free the other Yudu people from their restraints. Then these people would help Grand Luo and completely seize control of the spirit sea. Of course, if he was still alive, he would definitely do it himself and use the damage he had caused to mend it to gain control of the spirit sea. What should this be called? A thief calling a thief, or a soldier calling a bandit? Lin Feng looked at this scene and smiled. Very good. I hereby announce that the tug-of-war competition officially begins. Announce the competitors from both sides. On the left, the competitors from Taishu Temple, and on the right, the competitors from Yudu race. The current leaders of Yudu race, a bunch of great demons of Yudu, clearly knew the plan of the late chief. After sensing the power of the spirit sea in detail, it was easy to see that there were people from other families trying to mend the spirit sea. The setup of Yuhuang Celestial Sea was also showing its effect. Both sides were now in the process of wrestling. This opponent was most likely Taishu Temple. As for the specific situation in the spirit sea, the great demons of Yudu didn't know much, but they knew that no matter if it was fighting for control of the spirit sea, or getting rid of the white halo formed by the power of the spirit sea, they needed to use all their strength. Because they weren't in the spirit sea, the Yudu people still suffered quite a bit. Even so, the restoration of the Sea of Light by Taishu Temple instantly went haywire. The damage to the spirit sea was still being repaired, but everyone in Taishu Temple quickly realized that their control over the spirit sea hadn't increased. They frowned slightly and raised their spirits to communicate with the spirit sea with all their might. At the border of the Sea of Light and the world of the spirit sea, in the ball of light, Lin Feng looked at this scene and smiled without saying a word. Rays of light poured into the heavenly scythe golden bead before shooting out again, landing on Lin Feng's true body and Brontosaurus's clone. That's right, to boost everyone's fighting spirit, I'll announce the reward for the competition. That is, Lin Feng said with a smile. Help me refine my spirit to return to the void faster. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.